Chapter 941. The secret room was completely silent. Everyone lowered their heads in shame, feeling very nervous. Kong Tianxin looked at the black deacon and said in a deep voice, "Continue." The deacon in black continued, "After Ji Tianxing and the girl injured the guards of the mountain gate, they rushed through the mountain gate and rushed to the mountain peak. My subordinates, deacons, and guards heard the news and rushed to the scene. However, none of them dared to stop them. After that, Elder Li and Elder Kai arrived and stopped Ji Tianxing. Elder Li argued with Ji Tianxing and humiliated Ji Tianxing. After that, he was severely injured by Ji Tianxing and fainted. Kong Tianxin's frown deepened as he ordered, "Repeat what Elder Li and Ji Tianxing said to me." The deacon did not dare to hide anything. He quickly told Kong Tianxin everything that Elder Li and Ji Tianxing said. Kong Tianxin was so angry that she slammed her palm on the jade chair. "Pine! Bastard! What a bastard! Elder Li is such an idiot. He almost caused our sect to be destroyed. He doesn't even know what the name, Ji Tianxing, means. How dare he put on airs in front of Ji Tianxing? He even insulted him and the girl beside him." Luckily, Elder Li was severely injured by Ji Tianxing and fainted. That allowed Ji Tianxing to vent his anger. "Otherwise, I would have punished him as well." Kong Tianxin exuded a chilling aura, and her anger filled the entire secret chamber. Everyone lowered their heads in fear, and no one dared to even breathe loudly. Although the first elder was not happy about it, he did not dare to say anything. The second elder hesitated for a moment before he said, "Faction leader, don't you think it's disappointing for everyone to hear what you said about Elder Li? So what if Ji Tianxing is the realm lord of Tianshan region and a famous emperor's disciple? Our Qinkuan sect does not have to lower our heads to him. We can report to the heavenly concubine and ask the Son of Heaven to back us up if he dares to run amok in our sect. Besides, the heavenly concubine can also report this to the emperor. The emperor will definitely punish Ji Tianxing." The other elders and deacons nodded in agreement. "That's right. Second elder is right. Why should we lower our heads to Ji Tianxing? Humph. Emperor's disciple is nothing. Is he more honorable than the emperor? So what if Ji Tianxing is the #1 genius of the human race? The emperor's disciple can decide his life and death." Kong Tianxin stared coldly at the elders and deacons. Suddenly, she was so angry that she let out a sneer. "Ha ha ha! You bunch of frogs at the bottom of a well. Have you been blinded by false reputation? Have you been blinded by lard? The Yong'an region lord is only being polite to us because of the heavenly concubine and the emperor. Do you really think that Ji Tianxing is the same as the Yong'an region lord? You don't even know the situation in Zhong state. You don't even know how high Ji Tianxing's position in the human race is. And Suwen is indeed the heavenly concubine, but you don't even know that the emperor doesn't like her at all. Has the emperor ever come to our sect? Has he ever sent any gifts or letters to our sect? If it weren't for Ji Tianxing and Yun Yao, the heavenly concubine would have been locked up in the cold palace. You wouldn't be able to sit here and act so smug." The elders and deacons were dumbfounded when they heard the shocking news. The second elder's expression changed drastically, and his entire old face turned red. Kong Tianxin grinned and continued, "The heavenly concubine is indeed honorable, but even if she saw Ji Tianxing, she has no right to be arrogant. Do you understand? Even the emperor can't punish Ji Tianxing because he and Ji Tianxing are good friends. Friends of equal status. The emperor doesn't even care about Qinkuan sect, but you naively think that the emperor is our son-in-law and will back us up. Not to mention the emperor, even the emperor himself thought highly of Ji Tianxing. He even personally conferred Ji Tianxing the title of Heavenly Stellar Region Lord. No matter what Ji Tianxing did in Zhong state, even if he destroyed the Duanmu family, one of the three ancient families, the emperor did not punish him. Even the Duanmu family was destroyed by Ji Tianxing, what is Qin sect to him? What right do you have to be so arrogant in front of him? You attacked Ji Tianqing and he didn't kill you on the spot. That's already very kind of him. Otherwise, do you think you're still alive and complaining to me? Kong Tianqing was agitated. She slammed her palms on the jade chair as she spoke, as if she had expected better from Wuxia. All the elders and deacons were so scared that their faces turned pale. Sweating profusely, they buried their heads in their chests. They did not dare to imagine that Ji Tianqing's status was so high. Ji Tianqing's strength and methods were so powerful that it was terrifying. When they thought about how the Duanmu family was destroyed by Ji Tianqing, they felt a chill run down their spines. They rejoiced in their hearts that they were still alive after provoking Ji Tianqing. Kong Tianqing was so angry that his chest heaved up and down. It took him a long time to calm down. He looked at the crowd sternly and scolded angrily, "You bunch of pig brains. You only know how to be arrogant and think that you're the best in the world. You don't respect anyone. How many times have I told you to restrain yourselves? What happened in the end? Now, you've finally met someone that you can't afford to offend. You were beaten up so badly, and now you have to apologize to him with a smile on your face. It's all because of you. If I didn't arrive in time, you would have created a huge mess for me." All the elders and deacons lowered their heads and clenched their fists. They did not even dare to breathe loudly. Now that things had come to this, they no longer dared to complain. They were all regretting their actions. After a long time, Kong Tianqing suppressed his anger and said in a cold and serious tone, "What's done is done. This is a painful lesson that I hope you will remember. In the future, all of you better restrain yourselves. Don't let this arrogant and despotic atmosphere continue to spread. I will also do my best to rectify this unhealthy trend. If we don't stop this evil trend in time, sooner or later, our faction will be destroyed." All the elders were remorseful. They quickly saluted Kong Tianqing and said, "Yes, sir." When Kong Tianqing saw that everyone had lowered their heads and admitted their mistakes, his anger dissipated. He said in a dignified tone, "Now, all of you follow me to the guest hall. I will bring all of you to see Ji Tianqing. You must show your sincerity and apologize to him in person. I will do my best to deal with this matter properly. Even if I have to sacrifice a lot, I will appease Ji Tianqing's anger. We cannot afford to offend him. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable." Chapter 942. Inside the main hall of Qin sect. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku were sitting on the left side of the main hall. They were resting with their eyes closed. On the table beside the two of them, there was a fragrant spiritual tea and exquisite and delicious pastries. However, he did not eat the pastries or drink the tea. Instead, he looked at them coldly and waited for the results. Not long after, a series of heavy footsteps could be heard coming from the entrance of the hall. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku opened their eyes and looked towards the entrance of the grand hall. They saw Kong Tianqing leading 9 elders and more than 20 deacons into the grand hall with their heads lowered. The elders and deacons looked like frosted eggplants. They did not dare to look at Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku's faces. Kong Tianqing stood in front of Ji Tianqing. He held up the teacup with both hands and handed it to Ji Tianqing respectfully. "Young Master Ji, today's matter is indeed a misunderstanding. We can only blame our sex guards, deacons, and elders for being ignorant frogs at the bottom of a well. They had eyes but failed to see. They did not recognize that you were here in person and offended you. Just now, I have already severely reprimanded them and made them realize their mistakes. I, Kong, represent Qin sect and sincerely apologize to you. I hope that you will not hold a grudge against us and forgive us for offending you." With that said, Kong Tianqing handed the tea to Ji Tianqing with both hands. She lowered her head respectfully, as if she was apologizing for her mistake. Ji Tianqing did not take the tea. He looked at Kong Tianqin expressionlessly and said, "Faction leader Kong, you are a person who knows when to stop. You have a bright future ahead of you. However, this is just your attitude. You are representing all the elders and deacons of Qiankuan sect. They might not be convinced. All the elders of your sect are so arrogant that they can even ask you to leave on your behalf." Kong Tianqin was smart enough to understand what Ji Tianqing was trying to say before he could finish his sentence. Kong Tianqin turned around and looked at the elders and deacons behind him. He shouted, "You bunch of bastards! What are you waiting for? Why aren't you kneeling and admitting your guilt? Kneel down and confess." All the elders and deacons were stunned for a moment. Their faces became very ugly, and their hearts were filled with hesitation. However, Kong Tianqin's face darkened, and a domineering aura burst out from his body as he shouted, "Kneel." All the elders and deacons suddenly trembled, intimidated by his majesty. They all knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Ji Tianqing, begging for forgiveness. "We were blind and offended young Master Ji. Please forgive us, young Master Ji. We failed to recognize a prodigy and offended young Master Ji. We hereby kowtow and apologize to young Master Ji. We hope that young Master Ji will forgive us. We are bastards. We are frogs in a well. We shouldn't have offended young Master Ji. Please forgive us." 9 elders and over 20 deacons knelt on the ground, kowtowing in fear and trepidation while begging for forgiveness. The hall was instantly filled with clamor. A group of people covered in blood, with bruises all over their faces, kneeling on the ground and kowtowing was a comical sight. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing reached out and took a sip of the spirit tea that Kong Tianqin was holding. "All right, let them all leave. I have something important to tell you." Hearing this, Kong Tianqin let out a sigh of relief. He quickly bowed and said, "Thank you for your magnanimity, young Master Ji. I can't thank you enough." After that, he waved his hand at the elders and deacons, indicating that they should leave. As if they had been pardoned, they quickly stood up and left the hall. After a while, only Ji Tianqing, Ji Ku, and Kong Tianqin were left in the hall. At this time, Kong Tianqin asked tentatively, "Young Master Ji, how may I help you?" Ji Tianqing didn't beat around the bush and said directly, "Sect Master Kong, what I want to tell you is related to the Shenhui sect. More than 100 years ago, the Green Mountain sect raised a flood dragon and had the heavenly prayer mirror. As a result, they were attacked by the Green Mountain sect and the other 3 major forces. The Shenhui sect was besieged by the 4 major forces. After a fierce battle, the heavenly prayer mirror was detonated. The 5 major sects were severely damaged, and their strength was greatly damaged. The flood dragon was taken away by Elder Ji of the Shenhui sect, but the dragon crystal was taken away by another group of experts. After many investigations, I finally found out that the dragon crystal is in the hands of the Heaven and Earth sect." At this point, Ji Tianqing looked at Kong Tianqin with a deep and sharp gaze. He didn't say anything else. In fact, he only guessed that the dragon crystal was in the hands of the Heaven and Earth sect. He didn't have any clues or evidence. He said this on purpose to test Kong Tianqin. Kong Tianqin was taken aback. His expression changed slightly, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. "This." He frowned. After a moment of hesitation, he asked cautiously, "Young Master Ji, did you come to the Heaven and Earth sect for that dragon crystal?" Seeing his reaction, Ji Tianqing was secretly pleased. "Humph, it seems that I guessed right. The dragon crystal is in the hands of the Heaven and Earth sect." Kong Tianqin heard that I had investigated it thoroughly. Seeing my confident tone, he didn't dare to hide the truth. His expression didn't change. He nodded calmly and said, "That's right. I came for the dragon crystal." Kong Tianqin furrowed his brows, showing a hesitant expression. "Young Master Ji, to tell you the truth, the dragon crystal did fall into the hands of our sect after a few rounds. However, the last sect master of our sect was a grandmaster in crafting magic tools. He used the dragon crystal as the core to craft a top-notch magic tool of the heavenly origin state. Ji Tianqing also furrowed his brows. Is the dragon crystal in good condition? It hasn't been melted down, right? Kong Tianqing shook his head. No. But the dragon crystal is the core of the magic tool. Ji Tianqing said expressionlessly, as long as the dragon crystal is in good condition, it's fine. Go and get the magic tool. Kong Tianqing put on a troubled expression. Young Master Ji, that magic tool is the Ice Dragon Compass. It is very important to our sect. It is used to gather spiritual veins. If we lose this magic tool or the dragon crystal, our spiritual veins will be affected. Ji Tianqing didn't waste any more time. He took out 2 magic tools from his infinite space ring and slammed them on the table. I only want the dragon crystal. I'll give you these 2 magic tools as compensation. Is that enough? The 2 magic tools he took out were a top-notch heavenly origin sword and a heavenly gold compass. He had more than 100 magic tools in his infinite space ring. These were all low-grade items that he had no use for. However, to the Heaven and Earth sect, a magic tool was a priceless treasure. It was extremely rare. Kong Tianqing was stunned on the spot. Her eyes were fixed on the 2 instruments, and her heart was filled with shock. Chapter 943. Kong Tianqing was smart. He would not offend Ji Tianqing or harm Qinkuan sect. He knew that Ji Tianqing was determined to get the dragon crystal. Even if he did not hand over the dragon crystal, Ji Tianqing would snatch it from him. By then, Qinkuan sect would have no choice but to swallow their grievances. If that was the case, they might as well hand over the dragon crystal and get some compensation. Losing a dragon crystal in exchange for 2 dermic instruments was definitely a good deal. 15 minutes later, Kong Tianqing returned to the guest hall with an ice-blue dermic instrument compass. Young Master Ji, the Ice Dragon Compass is here. Kong Tianqing walked up to Ji Tianqing and presented the compass to him. Ji Tianqing took a closer look and saw that it was an ice-blue dermic instrument the size of 2 palms. It was made of exquisite materials. There were 3 dragons carved on the edge of the compass, and they formed a circle around the compass. They were very lifelike and lively. The front and back of the compass were engraved with array Dao runes and mysterious symbols. In the middle of the compass was a black crystal the size of a walnut. The crystal was in the shape of a hexagon. It shone with a black light and gave off a chilling aura. Clearly, this black crystal was the dragon crystal. Ji Tianqing took the Ice Dragon Compass and used his array Dao skills. He shot out 10 rays of golden light into the compass. He waved his hands and made a series of hand seals to dismantle the array on the compass. After a short span of a few dozen breaths, the compass emitted a crisp cracking sound, and dense cracks appeared on it. In the blink of an eye, the exquisite Ice Dragon Compass was reduced to a pile of debris. The black dragon crystal fell to the ground and Ji Tianqing grabbed it. A top-tier ethereal dermic instrument was reduced to pieces just like that. Kong Tianqing was dumbfounded. Her eyes were wide open, filled with shock and disbelief. Oh my God! Back then, the previous sect leader had spent 3 months and used up invaluable materials to refine this magic tool. Ji Tianqing actually used only a few dozen breaths to break the Ice Dragon Compass into pieces. His strength, his methods, are actually so powerful. Kong Tianqing was both shocked and distressed. She felt even more respect for Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing put away the dragon crystal and got up to bid him farewell. Sect leader Kong, the dragon crystal belongs to me, and the 2 magical artifacts belong to you. This matter is settled. Goodbye. After saying that, he stood up with Ji Ku and walked towards the entrance of the main hall. Kong Tianqing didn't expect him to be so swift and decisive, without the slightest hesitation. He hurriedly caught up with him and respectfully said, "Young Master Ji, you've come from afar. Why don't you stay in our sect for a few days so that I can take care of you and apologize?" "No need, I still have things to do." Ji Tianqing walked out of the hall without looking back, waving his hand to refuse. Kong Tianqing nodded and did not try to persuade him to stay. He personally escorted Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku out of the main hall and watched them fly into the sky. It was not until the two of them disappeared into the horizon that he could finally relax. A bitter smile appeared on his face. "I didn't expect Ji Tianqing to come to our sect personally for such a small matter. And it was settled so easily. It's all because of those guards and elders. They were so blind to have caused such a mess for no reason. They were asking for trouble." Kong Tianqing's mood was very complicated. He sighed silently and turned to leave. He returned to the main hall with a dark face and gathered the elders and deacons. He began a series of discussions and announced a series of orders. In the past, the disciples, elders, and deacons were arrogant and domineering. Kong Tianqing had tried to discipline and teach them many times, but they did not change. After this incident, Kong Tianqing decided to learn from it and rectify the evil in the sect. He would not let the same thing happen again. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku rode on Qianyu and traveled at lightning speed in the sky. Ji Ku recalled what had happened before, and she couldn't help but smile. "Brother Tianqing, that was so satisfying. Those arrogant idiots from Qiankuan's sect were so arrogant just a moment ago. But after being scolded by their patriarch, they all cried and begged for mercy. Every time I think of their pitiful faces, I can't help but laugh. He. Ji Tianqing smiled and shook his head. He said calmly, "They are just a bunch of frogs at the bottom of a well. After this lesson, they should know better." After that, he took out the black dragon crystal from his infinite space ring and summoned the little black dragon. "Little black dragon, I've finally found the dragon crystal that you've been dreaming of." Hearing this, the little black dragon was overjoyed. With a swoosh, it grew to 3 meters long and circled behind Ji Tianqing. The little black dragon stared at the black dragon crystal and said excitedly, "Old Ji, you're amazing. I've lost my dragon crystal for more than 100 years. I thought that I would never be able to get it back. I didn't expect that you would only use a few days and a little trick to get it back. Old Ji, thank you so much." Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. "Actually, I didn't expect things to go so smoothly either. At first, I thought that the dragon crystal was in the hands of Qiankuan's sect. I didn't expect that after what happened, Kong Tianqing would be intimidated by me." His attitude was very respectful, and he was also mentally prepared to apologize and make peace with the matter. "I was just trying to trick him and he didn't dare to hide the truth from me. That's how I got the dragon crystal." Qianyu laughed. Ha. "That's why I said that strength is the most important thing." Old Ji's strength, status, and dominance shocked Kong Tianqing and made him hand over the dragon crystal obediently. If it were anyone else, Kong Tianqing would not have given up the dragon crystal so easily. Ji Tianqing smiled and stopped talking about this topic. He handed the dragon crystal to the little black dragon and said, "Little black dragon, your dragon crystal has been lost for more than 100 years and was refined into a magic weapon. Although the dragon crystal has been nourished by the magic weapon, it has become very powerful. However, after you retrieve the dragon crystal, you have to remove the impurities in the dragon crystal and refine it carefully." "All right, I understand." The little black dragon hurriedly nodded before swallowing the dragon crystal in an impatient manner. After the dragon crystal fell into its stomach, it quickly drilled into its head and steadily fell into its brain. "Old Ji, I'm going to sleep and cultivate to refine the dragon crystal." It greeted Ji Tianqing and went back into the 100 treasures brocade pouch to sleep and refine the dragon crystal. It had been stuck at the 9th level of the origin core stage for a long time. Now that it had found the dragon crystal, it had obtained a powerful boost and its body was complete. Chapter 944. After that, Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku continued their journey. As time passed, Qian Yu carried them across mountains and rivers. They passed through half of the southern continent and approached the great swamp of the southern wilderness. During their journey, Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku had nothing to do. They could only meditate and cultivate. Fortunately, the southern continent had always been peaceful. They did not encounter any danger during their journey. They were safe and sound. Unknowingly, 2 months had passed. In these 2 months, Ji Tianqing had been sharpening his heart and fusing with the sword embryo. Heaven did not disappoint those who worked hard. On the evening of the 61st day, he finally fused the sword embryo with his heart and successfully cultivated the heart of the sword. At the same time, his strength had reached the 9th level of the heavenly origin stage. The path of the heart of the sword was completed. His heart and the sword embryo had fused together and turned into a golden sword that floated above his heart. From now on, the heart of the sword was the source of his strength and also his life. Even if his physical body was destroyed, as long as his heart of the sword was not broken and his soul was not extinguished, he would not die. Moreover, his physical body had become stronger. His strength, speed, and defensive ability had more than doubled. The moment the divine skill was completed, Ji Tianqing's body surged with golden light and emitted an invisible sword intent that seemed to be able to pierce the sky. This is great. Since I obtained Kenshin's tomb and started cultivating the path of the heart of the sword, 2 years have passed. I have finally cultivated the path of the heart of the sword. Next, I have to continue sharpening my heart of the sword and accumulate strength to break through to the soul-tempering stage. Only when I reach the soul-tempering stage can I be considered an extraordinary expert. Only then can I roam the Tianxian continent and have the hope of saving Yao Yao. Ji Tianqing opened his eyes and murmured in his heart. His eyes were filled with anticipation. Ji Ku, who was sitting not far behind him, was also awakened by the sword intent that was emitting from his body. She stared at Ji Tianqing curiously for a while, then asked tentatively, "Big brother Tianqing, did you just break through?" Ji Tianqing looked at her and nodded with a smile, "That's right. I have been stuck at the 8th level of Sky Origin stage for 4 months. I have finally mastered the martial art and reached the 9th level." Ji Ku was shocked. He smiled excitedly and said, "That's great. Congratulations, big brother Tianqing. You're 1 step closer to the soul refinement realm. Brother Tianqing, with your current strength, you're definitely the #1 imperial prince in the imperial palace." The prince of the Water clan had reached the 9th level of the Sky Origin stage a long time ago. He was recognized as the most powerful prince in the world. But in my opinion, he's definitely no match for you. Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded, tacitly agreeing with this statement. Ku, the southern wasteland city is just up ahead. That ancient city was the closest city to the southern wasteland Great Swamp. 300 miles south of the southern wasteland city is the southern wasteland Great Swamp. Ji Ku suddenly showed an expression of relief and said with relief, "Great, we've been on the road for 2 months, and we're finally here." Qian Yu was also excited, "Ha ha ha, we're finally there. I haven't rested for 2 months. I'm so tired." However, traveling for 2 months has actually stimulated my potential and endurance. I'm 1 step closer to the Sky Origin stage. Old G, I feel like I'll be able to break through to the Sky Origin stage in a few days. For the past 2 months, Qian Yu had been flying without rest or sleep. This was the longest time it had ever spent on a journey. It had long since exhausted itself and was very lethargic. However, it was also a good training for its strength and endurance. It had benefited it a lot. Ji Ku looked tired and said, "Brother Tianqing, when we arrive at the southern wasteland city, we must rest for a few days in the city. We'll enter the southern wasteland Great Swamp after we've rested." Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "I have the same idea. After we enter the southern wasteland city, not only will we have to rest, I'll also ask for information in the city to deepen our understanding of the southern wasteland Great Swamp. Although he had read many books in the central state and had a certain understanding of the southern wasteland Great Swamp, but the information was from many years ago, and the amount of information was too little. He had to know more information. It would be best if he could get a map of the southern wasteland Great Swamp. Soon, a huge shadow appeared on the ground in front of them. It was an ancient and majestic city with a radius of 100 miles. It was located on a vast yellow grassland. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, the ancient city was covered with a layer of hazy golden light. It looked very mysterious. As Qian Yu rapidly approached, Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku looked up and finally saw the appearance of the city. Huge dark brown rocks were piled up to form a huge city wall that was 10 feet high. On the city wall, there was a tower every 100 meters. A group of city guards was stationed in each tower, and they had set up huge magical ballistic cannons. At the foot of the 30-meter-tall city gate, there were over 100 black-armored city guards standing guard. These city guards were all elite soldiers. They wore red tasseled helmets, had blades at their waists, and held spears in their hands. Their whole body emitted an iron-blooded murderous aura. There were not many people going in and out of the city gate. They lined up in an orderly manner, waiting to be checked. Seeing this scene, Ji Ku asked Ji Tianqing with some doubts, "Brother Tianqing, is that the southern wasteland city? It seems that the city is heavily guarded, as if there's going to be a war." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and explained, "This place is under the rule of the Heaven Wasteland Empire. It's been peaceful for many years, and there won't be a war. However, 300 miles south of the city is the southern wasteland swamp. It's said that there will often be beast tides in the southern wasteland swamp. There are tens of thousands of ferocious demonic beasts that rush out in groups and besiege the southern wasteland city. Therefore, the southern wasteland city has always been heavily guarded, guarding against the attacks of beast tides at any time." Beast tide? Ji Ku frowned in puzzlement, feeling that this term was novel. Ji Tianqing explained, "Tens of thousands of ferocious beasts and demonic beasts, rushing out of the southern wasteland swamp and wreaking havoc in the southern wasteland city, wouldn't it be like a tide? However, I've only seen this term in books, and have never seen a beast tide." Ji Ku nodded as if he understood, and muttered with a smile, "I hope we're not so unlucky, and don't encounter any beast tides." As the two talked, they soon arrived outside the city gate of the southern wasteland city. Qian Yu descended from the sky. Ji Tianqing kept it in the 100 treasures brocade pouch and let it have a good rest. Then, Ji Tianqing took Ji Ku and walked towards the city gate of the southern wasteland city. The two followed behind the crowd of people, and waited for about half a quarter of an hour before they were checked by the city guards. They paid the entrance fee of 4 spirit stones before they were allowed to enter the city. After entering the city, the two walked along the wide and ancient black flagstone street, heading towards the center of the city. Chapter 945. The style of the southern wasteland city was completely different from that of the center state. Most of the houses and buildings in the center state were exquisite and gorgeous, revealing a solemn and refined aura. Most of the palaces and buildings in the southern wasteland city were rough in appearance, with ancient and strange shapes, revealing a trace of wild and unruly temperament. Even the clothes of the civilians in the city were mostly made from the furs of beasts. Many men were wearing boots and shorts made of animal skin, short coats and waistcoats made of animal skin. Around their necks and wrists, there were also bead chains made of animal bones and animal teeth. The number of warriors in the southern wasteland city was obviously more than that of ordinary cities. Not only were most of the men carrying swords and sabers, but even the seemingly charming women were also carrying swords or short sabers on their backs. Ji Tianqing strolled in the city for half an hour, using his soul sense to monitor the surrounding movements, listening to the conversations of the people, and silently collecting information. He gradually understood that the southern wasteland city was not only populated by local people, but also many warriors from all over the world. Most of these warriors were rangers and adventurers, who wanted to explore the southern wasteland swamp to look for treasures, or to hunt demon beasts and collect elixirs. Although the southern wasteland swamp was very dangerous, danger often coexisted with opportunity. There were many ancient relics in the southern wasteland swamp, which hid the cave residences of the predecessors, or some secret treasures. In addition, there were many ferocious beasts, spiritual flowers, rare herbs, and mineral resources. If one could obtain these things, they could be exchanged for spirit stones and cultivation resources. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ke strolled around the city twice, and had a general understanding of the southern wasteland city. Then, they found an inn in the city and temporarily stayed there. This inn was located in the center of the city, and was built in a very luxurious style. Not only did it have a palace, but it also had a spacious courtyard. There were hundreds of guests in the inn, most of whom were adventurers from all over the world. Most of these adventurers were traveling in groups, and they were quite cautious in their actions and words. After Ji Tianqing and Ji Ke checked in, they rested in their respective rooms, silently meditating to restore their strength. The night passed quickly. The next morning, Ji Tianqing's mental state had recovered a lot. He ended his meditation and walked out of the room. He went downstairs to the lobby on the first floor and saw that it was empty. There were only a few workers wiping the tables and chairs. A middle-aged man wearing a square scarf hat and a short coat made of animal skin was sitting at the counter, dozing off. The white-haired man was the innkeeper of the inn. Ji Tianqing walked to the front of the counter and asked, "Shopkeeper, do you know who is the most well-informed person in the southern wasteland city? I want to get some information." The shopkeeper opened his sleepy eyes and glanced at him. Slowly, he said, "What information? If you have any information about the great swamp of the southern wasteland, you can look for Mr. Hu." "Mr. Hu? Where should I go to find him?" Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows. The shopkeeper said with a smile, "Mr. Hu lives in the Four Quarters house. You can go there to find him. He is a well-known know-it-all in the city, and he is especially knowledgeable about the great swamp of the southern wasteland. However, the number of people who want to find him for information is as many as the carps crossing the river. Young master, you'd better prepare a generous gift to get what you want." "Thank you." Ji Tianqing nodded. 2 spirit stones appeared in his palm out of thin air, and he put them on the counter. The shopkeeper's smile became more and more brilliant. He put away the spirit stones with a smile and added, "Mr. Hu and I are old friends. Young master, after you go there, you can report my name as shopkeeper Niu. It will save you a lot of time waiting in line. I have to wait in line to get information. Are there really so many people looking for him?" Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and muttered in his heart. But he didn't say anything. He nodded to shopkeeper Niu and turned around to leave the lobby. He casually asked around on the street and found out the address of the Four Quarters house. He then rushed over as fast as the wind. Half an hour later, he passed through a clean and tidy street. He walked to the end of the street and arrived in front of the gate of a courtyard. The courtyard wasn't big, but it was dignified and grand. There were stone sculptures of a qilin and a lion on both sides of the gate. It was very imposing. There was a red sandalwood signboard above the gate frame. The words Four Quarters House were written in dark gold. It had a bit of an ancient charm. 4 tall and sturdy bodyguards were guarding the gate. They had treasured sabers hanging from their waists, and their bodies emitted a valiant aura. Ji Tianqing stepped through the gate and entered the courtyard. He saw more than 10 martial artists in a line, waiting in front of the lobby. The lobby's gate was tightly shut. It was obvious that Mr. Hu hadn't arrived yet and hadn't started accepting business. Ji Tianqing naturally wouldn't line up. He found a servant in the courtyard and told him that he was introduced by shopkeeper Niu. The servant immediately understood and led him away from the side door. They entered the courtyard behind the lobby. The backyard wasn't big, but it was clean and secluded. There was a 30-zhang-tall parasol tree in the courtyard. Its lush branches and leaves almost covered the entire courtyard. There was a stone table and a few stone stools under the tree. A white-bearded and white-haired old man in a blue robe sat there, leisurely sipping tea. The blue-robed old man had a thin figure. He had a goatee on his chin and a pair of eyes as sharp as a hawk's. The servant led Ji Tianqing to the tree and bowed to the blue-robed old man. "Master, this young master is a guest introduced by shopkeeper Niu." After saying that, the servant introduced him to Ji Tianqing. "Young master, this is our master, Mr. Hu." Ji Tianqing nodded at big Mr. Hu as a form of greeting. Mr. Hu pointed to the stone stools in front of him and smiled. "Young master, please sit." Ji Tianqing didn't stand on ceremony and sat down on the stone stools opposite him. Mr. Hu waved his hand and indicated for the servant to withdraw. Then he poured a cup of spirit tea for Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing took a sip of the spirit tea and said, "Mr. Hu, I want to inquire about the southern wasteland Great Lake." Mr. Hu stroked his beard and smiled. "Young master, this old man sees that you have an extraordinary appearance and are in high spirits. You must be a dragon among men. If this old man didn't guess incorrectly, young master should want to enter the southern wasteland Great Lake to explore the ruins of the cave and find the lost secret treasure, right?" Seeing that Ji Tianqing didn't deny it, he continued. "Young master, this old man has an unwritten rule here. I hope you can understand. Young master, please take out the price you are willing to pay. 100 or 300 spirit stones are fine. Place them on the stone table. If young master has any doubts, just ask this old man. Every time this old man answers a question, I will collect the corresponding spirit stones." Hearing Mr. Hu's words, Ji Tianqing's expression didn't change. However, in his heart, he was secretly cursing. This old fox is really cunning. There are clearly people lining up in the front yard to ask for information, but he avoided meeting them. It's most likely because he dislikes those people for not being able to pay a high price. Otherwise, those people lining up are all fake. They are all people that Mr. Hu found to pretend to be people to show his ability. When he meets a seemingly generous person like me, he opens his mouth like a lion and wants to rip me off. Chapter 946. Ji Tianqing didn't have a good impression of Mr. Hu, so he was on guard against him. But he didn't show it on his face. He took out 500 spirit stones from his interspatial ring and put them on the stone table. Mr. Hu's pupils suddenly dilated, and a bright light flashed in his eyes. His heartbeat also sped up a bit. Obviously, Ji Tianqing's extravagance was beyond his expectations, making him quite moved. If he didn't have to maintain the image of an expert, he would have already reached out his hand to touch that pile of sparkling spirit stones. Cough cough. He pretended to cough twice, and said with a calm face, as if he didn't care about money. "Young master, it seems like this is your first time coming to the southern wasteland city. You shouldn't have entered the southern wasteland Great Lake, right? Since that's the case, this old man will tell you in detail about the southern wasteland Great Lake. Listen carefully." Ji Tianqing expressionlessly nodded, and calmly looked at him. Mr. Hu stroked his beard and slowly explained, "The southern wasteland Great Lake is located in the southernmost part of the southern continent. According to legend, it is a land abandoned by the gods. Although the land there is vast and boundless, it has mountains and rivers. But for us humans, it is a forbidden zone for life. It is impossible to establish a foothold or survive in there. Therefore, no matter how powerful a kingdom is, they don't dare to step into the southern wasteland Great Lake, and they don't even dare to build a city there. The terrain of the southern wasteland Great Lake is quite unique. It is like a huge crater with a radius of 1,000,000 miles, as if it was punched by the gods. The surrounding terrain is relatively high, and most of it is mountain ranges and forests. But the closer you go to the center of the lake, the lower the terrain becomes. There are very few mountain ranges, and most of it is grassland, rivers, and lakes. There are also endless swamps. In the entire southern wasteland Great Lake, 60 to 70% of the area is swamps and quagmires. That is the most dangerous area in the Great Lake. Not only do the most powerful beasts and monsters lurk there, but there are also all kinds of rare poisonous snakes, ants, and insects that are invisible and tasteless. If young master enters the Great Lake, you must be careful and advance step by step. Even if some of the seemingly safe mountain peaks and forests, there are hidden dangers that can even endanger your life. As for the swamp area in the center of the Great Swamp, I advise young master not to go near it. Although most of the legendary experts' cave residences and relics were in that area, it was impossible for them to escape. However, even if one is a transcendent expert, it is very likely that he will lose his life after entering. Big Mr. Hu explained with a serious expression, and spoke for a full half an hour. After saying that, he said with a solemn expression, "Young master, the information that I just told you is very confidential and precious. Ordinary people don't know about it at all. As long as you remember this old man's words, you can avoid many dangers. This is information that can save your life. This old man won't take too many spirit stones from you. I'll only take 50 spirit stones as a small reward." After saying that, he reached out to take the spirit stones on the stone table. However, Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and raised his right hand to press down on his arm. Mr. Hu, what you just said is not a secret at all. Before I came to the southern wasteland city, I had already heard about it. Big Mr. Hu only had the strength of the Yuan Dan stage. With 2 fingers on his arm, he was instantly unable to move. He frowned, looking at Ji Tianqing with some displeasure, asking, "Young master, your words are a little biased. The information that I said was obtained from the mouths of the adventurers who have entered the great swamp of the southern wasteland. This information was exchanged with the lives and blood of countless martial artists. You have never entered the great swamp of the southern wasteland, how could you know this information?" A confident smile appeared on Ji Tianqing's face as he slowly said, "As the saying goes, read 10,000 books, travel 10,000 miles. Although I have never entered the great swamp of the southern wasteland, but I have read 10,000 books, and have some understanding of the great swamp of the southern wasteland. The information that you just said is clearly recorded in miscellaneous records of the clear breeze, Lu Gong's records of the southern wasteland, sights and news of the southern wasteland, and a brief history of the heaven wasteland." Big Mr. Hu was taken aback for a moment, staring at him with wide eyes, asking in bewilderment, "There are these books? Apart from a brief history of the heaven wasteland, the books that you mentioned, why have I not heard of any of them?" Ji Tianqing chuckled, "I forgot to tell you, I come from an ancient family in the central continent. There are millions of books in my residence, and most of them are the only copies in the world." "What? Are you doubting me? Do you want me to repeat the passages and contents of those books for you?" Big Mr. Hu's body stiffened, then he quickly squeezed out a smile, "No, of course not." "Then let's continue." Ji Tianqing looked at him with a smile. Big Mr. Hu was bitter and vexed, but on the surface he had to maintain his demeanor. He reluctantly withdrew his hand, nodding, "Fine, then let me ask young master, what are you looking for? Or perhaps, you are looking for the remains of a cave?" Ji Tianqing said with an expressionless face, "I am looking for a treasure. It is a broken sword that fell into the swamp of the southern wastelands 1,000 years ago. Does Big Mr. Hu have any news about it?" Big Mr. Hu frowned, his face full of doubt. "A broken sword that fell into the swamp of the southern wastelands 1,000 years ago? This is novel, this is the first time I have heard of this. In the past 1,000 years, the number of martial artists that have ventured into the swamp is more than tens of millions. If that broken sword was a divine weapon, it would have been taken away long ago." Ji Tianqing nodded, then continued to ask, "Then does Big Mr. Hu know, which places in the swamp are more strange? Or perhaps, strange things have happened somewhere, and rare phenomena have appeared. Big Mr. Hu frowned and thought for a long time, then said with a serious face, according to what I know, in the mountains and forests at the border, there are dozens of famous areas. Among those dozens of places, there were only 3 that had strange occurrences and strange occurrences. One is the evil dragon pool, another is the colorful forest, and the last one is the carefree mountain. The evil dragon pool is a deep pool surrounded by mountains. It is said that the pool is unfathomably deep, and there is an evil dragon hiding in it. Every few years, it will summon the wind and rain, stirring up chaos within 1,000 miles. The colorful forest is a misty forest. It is shrouded in colorful poisonous fog all year round, and outsiders are not allowed to enter. It is said that 300 years ago, there was a strong martial artist who broke into the colorful forest and saw a group of strange people living there. Some of those strange people looked like butterflies, some like moths, and some like wasps. No one knew what race they were. As for the carefree mountain, it was a lonely giant peak. It stood among the mountains, but it appeared and disappeared from time to time. Normal martial artists would not be able to detect it. Moreover, the mountain was very strange. It often changed its position. Last year it was in the east, this year it was in the south, and next year it appeared thousands of miles away in the north. It is said that on the carefree mountain, there lived a group of carefree spirits. They were very smart and had powerful magic power. Chapter 947. After listening to Mr. Hu's explanation, Ji Tianqing was both puzzled and intrigued. He silently memorized the names Evil Dragon Pool, Colorful Forest, and Carefree Mountain. After frowning and pondering for a moment, he asked Mr. Hu, "So, the southern wasteland swamp is not inhabited by humans, but by other races?" Mr. Hu shook his head and explained, "Actually, it's not that there are no humans in the southern wasteland swamp, it's just that ordinary humans can't live there. Rumor has it that there are some ancient powers hidden in the depths of the swamp. They are very mysterious and powerful, but they never appear in front of ordinary people, so they are unknown. However, if you ask me which ancient powers there are, I can't name a single one. After all, those mysterious and ancient powers are not something I can come into contact with." Ji Tianqing nodded to show that he understood, and asked Mr. Hu a few more questions. Among these questions, Mr. Hu could only answer 2 of them, and couldn't answer the rest. Therefore, Ji Tianqing didn't ask any more questions, and put the spirit stones on the stone table back into the space ring. He only left 50 spirit stones as Mr. Hu's reward. "Mr. Hu, you only answered 2 of my questions, so I can only give you 50 spirit stones." Mr. Hu's body suddenly stiffened, and his expression was somewhat unsightly. Originally, when he saw Ji Tianqing's extraordinary speech and high spirits, he thought that he was a rich and wealthy young master. When he saw Ji Tianqing take out 500 spirit stones, he was so excited that his blood was boiling. He only wanted to take all the spirit stones in his pocket, and not let a single one go. However, he didn't expect that Ji Tianqing wasn't so easy to fool. Not only did he turn the tables on him, but he also took back all the spirit stones, leaving only 50 for him. That feeling was like a cooked duck that had flown away, and the money that was in his wallet had been taken back. He was so angry in his heart that his face turned a little green. "Young master, this is against the rules. My 4-direction house oversees the southern wasteland city, and it collects information from all over. Who knows how many heroes have begged me to inquire about information. Aren't you belittling the 4-direction house and me by doing this? In any case, 50 spirit stones is absolutely not enough. Any question that I answer is worth more than that. You think it's too little?" Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a playful smile. With a wave of his hand, he swept up the 50 spiritual stones on the stone table and put them into his space ring. "Then there's none left." With that, he turned to leave. Mr. Hu was stunned for a moment before he flew into a rage. His face was ashen as he shouted, how dare you? Brat, you're simply going too far. Ji Tianqing's face darkened. He stared at him coldly and said in a cold voice, Mr. Hu, do you know that trouble comes from careless talk? If you dare to act presumptuously again, I guarantee that you and your four-direction house will be obliterated. As he spoke, he slowly raised his right hand. A golden light flashed in his palm, and a terrifying devouring power erupted. Shwa! Before Big Mr. Hu could react, he was sucked in. Ji Tianqing's big hand grabbed his neck and said in a cold voice, you and shopkeeper Niu are colluding to cheat others. Do you really think I can't tell? I'm in a good mood today, so I won't argue with you. If you dare to pester me again, I'll break your neck. Don't think that you can bargain with me just because you're a local in the southern wasteland city. You're not worthy. Even if the governor of the southern wasteland city came, he would have to kneel in front of me. With that, he let go of his hand and threw Big Mr. Hu back under the tree. Big Mr. Hu fell on the stone table with a plop, and then fell to the ground in a sorry state. He was filled with anger and humiliation. His face was ashen, and his whole body was trembling. However, his heart was filled with fear. He could only suppress his anger and did not dare to act up. Damn it! I've met a tough nut today. This brat has the strength of the Sky Origin stage and is from the Central Plains. He dares to be so arrogant and not even take the governor seriously. He must have a powerful background. Forget it, it's unwise to become enemies with this person for a few hundred spirit stones. Thinking of this, Big Mr. Hu could only suppress his anger and watch Ji Tianqing leave. Encountering such a person that he could not afford to offend, he could only swallow his anger. After Ji Tianqing left the four-direction house, he strolled around the city. He spent 5,000 spirit stones to buy a few bottles of antidote elixirs, as well as a topographic map of the southern wasteland Great Swamp. Of course, this was only a simple topographic map. It roughly marked the topography of the southern wasteland Great Swamp, as well as the dozens of well-known places. As for the areas between the various areas, most of them were blank. There were only a few lines and descriptions, indicating mountain ranges or rivers. In general, this map was very rough and abstract. It was not specific and detailed enough, but it was better than nothing. After buying the antidote elixirs and the map, Ji Tianqing returned to the tavern. Ji Ku had been waiting for him in the tavern. When he saw that he had returned, he quickly went to his room and inquired about the news. Big brother Tianqing, have you inquired about the news? Ji Tianqing nodded and said, I have some clues. Big brother Tianqing, do you know where to go? Did you get a map of the southern wasteland Great Swamp? Ji Tianqing nodded again and said, there are 3 locations. They are the Evil Dragon Pool, the Colorful Forest, and the Carefree Mountain. I can't be sure which one is the problem, so I can only investigate them one by one. As for the map, I only bought a simple one, which cost me 200 spirit stones. This is the most detailed and accurate map that can be obtained by the major shops in the city. I'm afraid that there is no detailed map of the southern wasteland city. After all, very few people can come out alive after entering the depths of the Great Swamp. Ji Ku revealed a dignified expression and said, Big brother Tianqing, I heard other adventurers discussing the southern wasteland Great Swamp when I was in the tavern. Many people have entered the southern wasteland Great Swamp and have rich experience in exploring. They have also obtained many treasures. They will travel in groups of 3 to 5, helping each other to avoid the dangers and smoothly enter and exit the Great Swamp. Moreover, many people will go to the mercenary tower in the city to recruit people or join other adventure groups. Big brother Tianqing, we have never entered the southern wasteland Great Swamp, so we have neither experience nor people to help us. Why don't we go to the mercenary tower and recruit some people? If you can bring a few suitable people with you, you don't have to do everything by yourself. Maybe you can find that divine sword faster. After listening to Ji Ku's words, Ji Tianqing thought for a while and nodded in agreement. That's good. Recruiting a few capable people can indeed save us a lot of trouble. In that case, let's go to the mercenary tower and have a look. Okay. Ji Kun nodded with a smile and quickly followed him out of the tavern. Chapter 948. The mercenary tower was located on a street in the south of the city. It was always bustling with people coming and going. It was a 4-story palace with a rough and unrestrained appearance. There was a huge symbol of a sword and shield on the roof. Outside the entrance of the first floor, there were 2 rows of lifelike grayish-white statues on the left and right. They were the statues of the mercenary tower's previous leaders. 18 guards in black armor stood on both sides of the entrance with murderous auras. They had swords hanging from their waists. Several groups of adventurers and mercenaries with swords stood in the open space outside the entrance. They were whispering to each other about something. In the spacious hall, there were over 100 martial artists gathered in groups of 3 to 5. Some people were whispering to each other, some were arguing emotionally, and some were yelling loudly to recruit new members. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku rushed to the mercenary tower. As soon as they reached the entrance of the hall, several groups of martial artists stared at them. Their eyes shone brightly. As soon as the 2 of them stepped into the hall, the groups of martial artists immediately surrounded them and blocked their way. A burly man raised his chin at Ji Tianqing and asked, "Brother, are you here to issue a mission? Or are you looking for a team?" From another group of martial artists, a skinny young martial artist immediately walked out and said with a smile, "Brother, if you want to explore the Great Swamp, you can't do it alone. Moreover, you have such a delicate little beauty with you. How dangerous is it in the Great Swamp? Quickly join our Blood Knife Adventurer team." As soon as the skinny young man finished speaking, another burly man with a full beard squeezed out of the crowd and said to Ji Tianqing boldly, "Little brother, our Devouring Dragon Adventurer team has entered the Great Swamp 12 times. We have rich adventure experience and are famous in the entire southern wasteland city." In addition to these 3 people, there were 2 other martial artists with murderous auras. They also favored Ji Tianqing and invited him to join. Ji Tianqing's eyes swept across the crowd calmly. He said expressionlessly, "You are too weak. Get out of my way." Most of these martial artists were at the Mystic Comprehending Realm. Only a few leaders were at the Origin Core Realm. In Ji Tianqing's eyes, these people were so weak that they could not even withstand a single blow. They were not even qualified to be his servants. Although he was speaking the truth, when the crowd heard his words, they immediately frowned and showed displeased expressions. The other martial artists around the hall suddenly quieted down. "And you? Since you are so arrogant, then I, Ma Da Ho, will have to see how capable you are." He only wanted to knock down Ji Tianqing with one punch. He wanted to show off in front of everyone and save face for the leader of the Bloody Dagger Adventures. However, before his enormous fist light condensed from true origin could even touch Ji Tianqing, it was as if his entire body had been rammed by a raging bull. He flew backwards in a sorry state and crashed onto the ground with his limbs spread out. Plop! A muffled sound was heard and the entire hall fell silent. Ma Da Ho lay on the ground with a pale face. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He was in a daze and could not get up. The crowd did not see Ji Tianqing make a move. They only saw Ma Da Ho fly backward. This strange scene immediately left everyone dumbstruck, their hearts beating wildly. What happened? That guy did not make a move. How did Ma Da Ho fly backward? I know. It's his spiritual sense. That guy used his spiritual sense to send Ma Da Ho flying. Oh my God. He can send someone flying with his spiritual sense. This guy is so powerful. Ji Tianqing glanced at the crowd and was about to walk forward. Unexpectedly, another burly man with a full beard stopped him with a solemn expression. "Little brother, I admit that you're very strong. But you must pay the price for humiliating our Devouring Dragon Adventurer group. The robust man twisted his neck and cracked his knuckles. His entire body surged with a violent aura. He possessed a strength at the third level of the Origin Core stage. He was the vice leader of the Devouring Dragon Adventure Group and had a little reputation in southern Desolation City. Ji Tianqing looked at him expressionlessly and asked in a deep voice. "Are you sure you want to make a move?" The robust man puffed out his chest proudly and said in a sonorous tone, "It's related to the honor of our group. I have no choice but to step forward." Ji Tianqing said these 4 words expressionlessly. He raised his right hand like a bolt of lightning and slapped out, "You'll have to bear the consequences." The robust man did not see his movement clearly at all. He did not even have the time to block before he was slapped flying. Bang! Amidst a muffled sound, the robust man's chest caved in and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He flew out 30 m away, passed through the hall's door, and fell onto the street outside the mercenary tower. He smashed onto the ground and dust flew everywhere. After he landed, he lay on the ground and twitched. He struggled for a few times but was unable to get up. Everyone in the hall stared with their eyes wide open when they saw this scene, and they revealed astonished expressions. Everyone was silent for a long time before they recovered from their shock, and they instantly emitted cries of surprise that rose and fell. "Oh my God! This is too terrifying." Du Wei is a third-level Origin Core stage expert, but he was actually slapped flying with a single slap. What terrifying strength, no wonder he's so arrogant. Hehe, Ma De Ho and Du Wei are really unlucky today to have encountered a true expert. Since the moment the white-robed young man entered, I noticed that he had an imposing appearance and was in high spirits. He's absolutely not an ordinary person. The numerous mercenaries and adventurers whispered to each other as they looked at Ji Tianqing with gazes filled with reverence. The mercenary tower was like this, everything was based on strength, and strength was respected. The numerous mercenaries and adventurers would often come to blows because of some grudges and friction. Ji Tianqing only made a move to teach Ma De Ho and Du Wei a lesson and didn't kill them. Everyone was already used to this since long ago. However, after everyone witnessed what happened to Ma De Ho and Du Wei with their own 2 eyes, they hurriedly retreated far away from Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing's gaze swept through the hall, and when he saw there wasn't a single outstanding person amongst the 100+ martial artists, he lost interest and wanted to take Ji Ku and leave. These people are too weak and can't be placed in an important position. Let's go back. Ji Ku nodded before turning around and leaving with Chen Shi. However, the 2 of them had just walked to the entrance of the hall when the voice of a young man sounded out from behind them. "Young master, please wait." Ji Tianqing stopped when he heard this voice, and he turned around to look behind him. He saw a tall and sturdy young man wearing golden armor and carrying a golden sword on his back walking towards him with a smile on his face. This person had an extraordinary appearance and emitted a noble aura. Obviously, his status was extraordinary. Chapter 949. Ji Tianqing looked at the tall and sturdy young man, and his eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. The mercenary building was a motley crew, and he didn't expect that a Sky Origin stage expert would appear. Moreover, this tall and sturdy young man wearing golden armor and carrying a golden sword on his back was obviously not a human. He had a head of golden hair, dark golden pupils, and a nose that was flatter and wider than a human's. Especially his ears, which were half the size of a palm, pointed upwards, and had a layer of golden hair. However, his appearance didn't look ugly, and had a somewhat carefree and unrestrained temperament, and also had a mysterious temperament unique to a different race. The blond young man walked in front of Ji Tianqing, cupped his hands in salute, and said with a smile, "Young master, can I have a word with you?" Ji Tianqing roughly guessed his intention, and calmly nodded. The blond young man took him out of the hall, and walked to the side of the mercenary building to an empty alley. After the 3 of them stood still, Ji Tianqing opened his mouth and asked, "Sire, what can I do for you?" The blond young man cupped his hands in salute and said, "Let me introduce myself, my name is Shi Zhongjian, a prince of the Golden Lion clan." "May I ask this young master's name?" "Golden Lion clan." Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows, and secretly thought, sure enough, it's a different race, and a mysterious race that I've never heard of. He calmly replied, "I'm Ji Tianqing." Shi Zhongjian didn't have any unusual reaction, and still maintained a polite smile, and said, "Young Master Ji, you too want to explore the southern wasteland Great Lake, right?" "It just so happens that I also want to go to the southern wasteland Great Lake. I've been looking at the mercenary building for 2 days, but I haven't been able to recruit suitable people. Just now, when young Master Ji entered the hall, I saw that young Master Ji's skills were extraordinary, and you're the person I've been looking for. Here, I sincerely invite the two of you to join my Divine Lions Adventurer group. We can help each other, work together, and explore the southern wasteland Great Lake together." Ji Tianqing slightly frowned, and expressionlessly asked, "Divine Lions Adventurer group? How many people do you have? What are their strengths?" Shi Zhongjian was stunned for a moment, then quickly explained, "My Divine Lions Adventurer group was only established yesterday, and I am currently alone. I have not recruited the right people. However, as long as the two of you are willing to join us, we will have 3 people. Moreover, we are all Sky Origin stage cultivators. We will be able to explore the southern wasteland Great Swamp with twice the result with half the effort. We will be invincible." Shi Zhongjian's face was filled with anticipation. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. Ji Ku immediately burst into laughter, looking at him with a strange look in her eyes. Ji Tianqing also looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot and asked, "You dare to call yourself an adventure team by yourself? And they even invited us to join them?" Shi Zhongjian was stunned for a moment and asked doubtfully, "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" "Young Master Ji, as the saying goes, the beginning is always the hardest. As long as the two of you join my Divine Lions Adventurer group, the 3 of us are Sky Origin stage cultivators. We will definitely attract a lot of experts to join us and work for us." Ji Tianqing glanced at him and said expressionlessly, "If you want to join forces with me, then cancel your Divine Lions Adventurer group. We don't need this kind of false reputation, and we don't need to find more people. Warriors below the Sky Origin stage will only be a burden to us and are useless. In addition, I will be in charge of the itinerary and arrangements. To put it bluntly, you have to listen to me." This. Shi Zhongjian was stunned. He fell into a dilemma and hesitation. "Young Master Ji, is this appropriate? Forming an adventurer group to explore the southern wasteland Great Swamp is my plan. In any case, I am the prince of the Golden Lion clan. Of course, you have to listen to me." Seeing his reaction, Ji Tianqing turned around and left without hesitation. Seeing him and Ji Ku turn around and leave, Shi Zhongjian quickly followed and anxiously shouted, "Hey! Young Master Ji, don't go. I haven't finished speaking yet." Ji Tianqing ignored him and continued to walk out with an expressionless face. Ji Ku followed behind him, pursing her lips and secretly laughing. Shi Zhongjian saw that Ji Tianqing didn't give him any face and was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. He weighed and struggled for a moment before shouting, "Young Master Ji, I promise you. I can give up the Divine Lions Adventurer group and join you. However, I also have my own goals and plans. We have to get along as equals and help each other." Ji Tianqing glanced at him, then walked out of the alley without saying a word, and walked onto the main street. "Is this still not enough?" Shi Zhongjian followed closely behind him. After struggling for a while, he helplessly shouted, Okay, I will agree to all of it. I am willing to join your group. I will listen to you on the itinerary and the itinerary." Seeing that Shi Zhongjian had compromised, Ji Tianqing stopped. Shi Zhongjian suddenly felt relieved. He squeezed out a smile and said, "Young Master Ji, then we have a deal. I wish us a happy cooperation. Ji Tianqing revealed a playful smile. He looked at him and said, "Don't worry, I haven't agreed to accept you. Let me ask you, have you ever entered the southern wasteland Great Swamp? Do you have any experience in exploration?" Shi Zhongjian suddenly revealed an embarrassed expression. He scratched his head and said, "This is my first time in the southern wasteland city. I have never entered the southern wasteland Great Swamp. Before, I have always been in seclusion in the sect. I have almost never explored the dangerous places and ruins. Because of this, I want to form an adventure group and recruit people to explore the southern wasteland Great Swamp." Ji Tianqing nodded and asked in a playful tone, "In this case, what is the meaning of you joining us? What can you do? How can you help us?" Shi Zhongjian frowned. He thought for a while and said confidently, "I am at the 4th level of the Sky Origin stage. I am proficient in the secret sword art of the Golden Lion clan. I am very powerful, haha." Ji Ke couldn't help but laugh out loud. Ji Tianqing also rolled his eyes and said angrily, "I am sorry, you can't even take one hit from me." Shi Zhongjian suddenly felt ashamed. His face flushed red, and he looked helpless. Ji Ke covered her small mouth and smiled even more brightly. She whispered to Ji Tianqing, "Brother Tianqing, this guy seems to be traveling for the first time. He is so silly." Ji Tianqing just nodded and didn't say anything. However, he had another idea in his mind. This guy is the prince of the Golden Lion clan. His identity is mysterious, and it is his first time to leave the sect. What kind of sect can cultivate a young genius at the 4th level of the Sky Origin stage? With this guy's talent and strength, even in the Central Plains, he is qualified to be a prince in the royal palace. It seems that his clan and sect are not simple. At this time, Ji Ke saw Shi Zhongjian's uneasy appearance. He couldn't bear it, so he asked, "Shi Zhongjian, do you have a map of the southern wasteland Great Swamp? A detailed map?" Chapter 950. It was inconvenient to talk on the street, so the three of them returned to the inn. In the room, the three of them sat around a round table, looking down at a map on the table. This was a map engraved on golden paper. When rolled up, it would be a golden ball. When spread out, it could cover the entire table. The map clearly depicted the entire southern wasteland Great Swamp. Every area was clearly marked. Mountains, rivers, forests, and swamps were all clearly visible. There were more than 100 names on the map. The terrain and routes between each area were also clearly marked. There were even hundreds of dangerous areas and dozens of safe areas on the map. All in all, this was a very detailed map. It was 10 times more detailed than the one Ji Tianqing bought. The map marked 50% of the southern wasteland Great Swamp. Only the swamp area in the middle was still blurry. Ji Tianqing could see that this golden paper map was very old. It was at least 200 to 300 years old. Moreover, this map was definitely not made by a Sky Origin expert. At least several spirit refining experts were needed to explore the southern wasteland Great Swamp so clearly. After Ji Tianqing finished looking, Shi Zhongjian put away the golden paper map. He rolled it into a golden ball and put it into his interspatial ring. He quietly observed Ji Tianqing's reaction and asked tentatively, "Young Master Ji, is this map of mine very detailed?" "Yes." Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "It is very detailed. But looking at this map, it is at least 200 to 300 years old. I'm afraid many things have changed." "Shi Zhongjian, where did you get this map?" Shi Zhongjian hesitated for a moment, then shook his head and said, "Young Master Ji, please forgive me for not being able to answer this question. This is my secret." Ji Tianqing stopped asking. Ji Ke rolled her eyes and had an idea. She pretended to be unhappy and said in a serious tone, "Shi Zhongjian, this map is very important. It is related to our itinerary and safety. You have to tell us where you came from. Moreover, since you want to join our team, we have to trust each other. We can't hide anything. Otherwise, how can we overcome the difficulties and face the dangers together? Shi Zhongjian frowned and thought for a moment. He nodded in agreement and said, "Yes, what you said makes sense. Alright, then I'll be honest. This map was given to me by the sect master when I left the sect. This map is indeed 300 years old. It was made by the sect's Grand Elder. He combined the experiences of several soul refinement realm experts when they explored the Great Lake. He spent several years repeatedly verifying and deducing, and it is absolutely accurate." Upon hearing Shi Zhongjian's words, Ji Tianxing and Ji Ku looked at each other and had the same thought in their minds. Isn't this Shi Zhongjian's thoughts too simple? With just a few words, he spilled the beans. Fortunately, we are not evil people. If this fellow had met a cunning and vicious person, he would have definitely suffered. Shi Zhongjian saw that the two of them were silent, so he quickly added, "Young Master Ji, I'm telling the truth. You must believe me. I can see that you have an extraordinary temperament, so I'm sure you have an extraordinary status. I'm willing to trust you, so I'm telling you these secrets." Ji Tianxing nodded and said in a serious tone, "All right, since you're so sincere, it's a deal." Shi Zhongjian saw that he nodded and felt relieved. He smiled and said, "That's great. I wish us a happy cooperation." "Oh right, young Master Ji, are we really not recruiting more people?" Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said, "There's no need. The quality of soldiers is more important than quantity. Anyone below the Sky Origin realm will only be a burden." Shi Zhongjian nodded in agreement and asked, "Young Master Ji, when will we depart?" "We'll rest for 2 days. We'll depart early in the morning the day after tomorrow." Ji Tianxing set the time without hesitation. After that, Shi Zhongjian also stayed in the inn and recuperated in peace. The three of them rested in the inn for 2 days. On the morning of the third day, they left the inn together. After leaving the southern wasteland city, the three of them flew into the sky and headed south as fast as lightning. While they were flying, Ji Tianxing told Shi Zhongjian and Ji Ku about their next itinerary. "After we enter the southern wasteland Great Swamp, our first goal is to explore the Evil Dragon Pond. Among the 3 places I want to explore, the Evil Dragon Pond is the closest to us. It's at the edge of the Great Swamp, among the mountains. With our speed, we should arrive at the Evil Dragon Pond by tomorrow evening. Of course, that's if we don't run into any danger on the way and don't waste time." Shi Zhongjian was suddenly interested. His eyes lit up, the Evil Dragon Pond. Just from the name, it sounded very powerful. Could it be that there was an evil dragon hiding there? Was it entrenched in the pool and had many demonic beasts under its rule? "Young Master Ji, are we going to catch that evil dragon? If we can catch a flood dragon, I'm so excited just thinking about it." Apparently, it was Shi Zhongjian's first time to travel outside. He was very interested in adventure and exploring dangerous places. Even though his goal had nothing to do with the Evil Dragon Pond, he was excited when he heard the name. He was looking forward to it. It couldn't be helped. He was like a blank piece of paper. Everything in the outside world was new to him. Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a playful tone, "I'm going to the Evil Dragon Pond to investigate something. As for whether we can catch that evil dragon, it depends on its strength. Lion, if we can catch that evil dragon, I'll give it to you." "Ah. Really?" Shi Zhongjian's body suddenly shook. He was so excited that he almost fell from the sky. "Young Master Ji, that's a flood dragon. Can we really catch it? Are you really willing to give it to me?" Ji Tianxing smiled and nodded, "Of course." The sudden surprise made Shi Zhongjian's blood boil. He couldn't believe it. When he was cultivating in the sect, he read books about flood dragons. He dreamed of having a flood dragon as his mount one day. How majestic would it be to ride a flood dragon and travel the world? Seeing him so excited, Ji Ku couldn't help but laugh. Lion, don't be so happy. We may not be able to see that evil dragon or catch it. What if that evil dragon is extremely powerful? Let alone catching it, I'm afraid our lives will be in danger. That's true. Shi Zhongjian immediately quieted down. His blood and excitement dissipated. Ji Ku's eyes flashed cunningly. He said playfully, Lion, do you really want to see a real flood dragon? Of course. I want to see it even in my dreams. Shi Zhongjian nodded without hesitation. Ji Ku smiled even more playfully, then you can ask Brother Tianqing. He can fulfill your wish. Shi Zhongjian was very confused. He looked at Ji Tianqing in confusion. Ji Tianqing didn't say anything. He waved his hand and released the little black dragon from the 100 treasures brocade pouch. Roar! With a flash of black light, an earth-shattering dragon roar burst out and resounded through the clouds. Swoosh! The black light flew into the sky and instantly grew to a length of 100 meters. It turned into a black flood dragon with bone-chilling cold. Without a doubt, this was the little black dragon. It had been sleeping in the 100 treasures brocade pouch for 2 months. It had finally fused with the dragon crystal and successfully broken through to the divine origin stage. Shi Zhongjian's eyes widened when he saw the little black dragon's true dragon body. His body stiffened and he stood rooted to the ground. Ah! This is a black dragon. The incomparable surprise and shock made his heart stop and he forgot to breathe. Chapter 951. Thump. Shi Zhongjian fell from the sky and smashed into the forest below. A deep hole was left in the earth and several large trees were also struck down. Shi Zhongjian was in a sorry state from the fall. His body was covered in mud, but he did not feel any pain. Filled with excitement, he immediately climbed out of the hole and flew back into the sky. Swish! He flew in front of the little black dragon and stared at the little black dragon at close range, his eyes filled with excitement. Wow, it really is a flood dragon, and an extremely rare black dragon. Young Master Ji, you're too awesome. You actually have a flood dragon. Oh my god, this is my lifelong dream. Shi Zhongjian was so excited that his face was flushed red. He felt like he was in a dream. He couldn't help but reach out to touch the little black dragon. However, the little black dragon had an aloof expression and turned its head away. Shi Zhongjian did not feel embarrassed. He reluctantly withdrew his hand and flew back to Ji Tianqing's side. Young Master Ji, I want to ask you for a favor. Ji Tianqing looked at him with a smile and asked, Oh, you're already calling me by honorifics? What do you want to do? Shi Zhongjian awkwardly scratched his head and explained, When I was young, I dreamed of having a flood dragon and riding it to soar through the world. On that snowy night, I begged my master for 3 days to catch a flood dragon for me. My master went to the Eastern Sea and only returned 3 years later. She did not catch a flood dragon, but she was covered in injuries and almost lost her life. How powerful and noble is a flood dragon? How could mortals like us tame one? I almost caused my master to lose her life and be punished by the sect to face the wall for 5 years. Sigh, I digress. Young Master Ji, I want to borrow your black dragon to ride, just for a moment. Can you fulfill my childhood wish? As long as you help me fulfill this wish, I will follow your lead and treat you with absolute respect. Ji Tianqing pointed at the 100-meter-long black dragon and smiled. The black dragon is so large. Are you sure you want to ride it and not ride it? Shi Zhongjian lowered his head to look at his 1-meter-long legs, then looked at the black dragon's 8-meter-thick body, and immediately laughed awkwardly. Let's go. Let's continue our journey. Ji Tianqing smiled and flew onto the little black dragon's back with Ji Ku. Shi Zhongjin was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly flew over and landed on the black dragon's back with excitement. The little black dragon carried the three of them and flew through the sky at lightning speed, flying towards the southern wasteland Great Marsh. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ke stood side by side, facing the cold wind high up in the sky. Their bodies were still straight and proud. The two of them looked at the mountains and forests beneath their feet, and then at the towering mountain in front of them. However, Shi Zhongjin quietly squatted down and reached out to touch the dragon scales on the back of the black dragon. His face was full of curiosity and he even let out a sound of praise. It really is a black dragon. A real flood dragon. Who would have thought that I would actually be able to see a flood dragon, and even have the honor of riding it? At this time, the little black dragon shouted in a low voice. Old Ji. This guy is secretly touching me. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ke turned to look behind them and saw Shi Zhongjin squatting on the black dragon's back, his hands still touching the dragon scales. Shi Zhongjin's body stiffened and he looked up at the two of them. Seeing the two of them not knowing whether to laugh or cry, Shi Zhongjin awkwardly smiled. Ahem. Young Master Ji, I've embarrassed myself in front of you. I just couldn't help myself. Ji Ke couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. Ji Tianqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head and said to the little black dragon, "Little black dragon, don't be so stingy. It's not like you'll lose a piece of meat from letting him touch you." The little black dragon was silent for a moment before it said in a low, muffled voice, "But he's a man." Pfff. Ji Ke's face flushed red and she finally couldn't hold back her laughter. Not long after, the little black dragon carried everyone over 500 kilometers. They crossed the vast forest and finally entered the southern wasteland Great Marsh. In front of them was an undulating mountain range filled with dark green primordial forests. There were countless towering mountains thousands of feet high in the mountain range, all of them shrouded in white clouds. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth was rich in these mountains. There were countless types of spiritual flowers and plants in the dense forest. Demon beasts also gathered in large groups and ran amok. The little black dragon flew over the peaks of the mountains, its speed as fast as lightning. Although there were many demon beasts and birds in the sky, they were all intimidated by the dragon's aura and didn't dare to approach. Ji Tianqing and the other two stood on the black dragon's back and looked down at the boundless mountain range below. They could feel the vast and ancient aura that assaulted their senses. Of course, they would also occasionally see a few adventurer groups in the mountains. They were harvesting spirit herbs or hunting demon beasts. As time passed, the little black dragon continued to fly into the depths of the mountains. The world became more and more vast and the mountains became more and more steep. There were more and more demon beasts in the mountains, and they were also more powerful. There were also fewer and fewer adventurers exploring the mountains. The day quickly passed. When night fell, the world was shrouded in darkness. There was no moon in the night sky. The little black dragon had already flown 10,000 miles, carrying the group into the depths of the mountains. In the middle of the night, the little black dragon was flying over a mountain thousands of feet high. A ball of dazzling golden light suddenly lit up the summit of the mountain. A golden silhouette as large as a palace shot into the sky like a bolt of lightning, hurtling toward the little black dragon. Ji Tianqing and the other two were immediately alerted. They turned their heads and saw that it was a massive golden eagle. This golden eagle was as large as a palace and its wingspan was 100 meters. Its appearance was incomparably majestic, unlike that of an ordinary demon beast. Ji Tianqing immediately recognized it. It was an adult blazing golden eagle, a demon beast with a top-tier bloodline. Its strength had reached the third level of heaven origin stage. Humph, no wonder it dares to attack us. Ji Tianqing coldly snorted and was about to strike and kill the eagle. However, Shi Zhongjin was even faster than him. His figure flashed and turned into a golden stream of light, rushing towards the flaming golden eagle. "Vile beast, how dare you attack a black dragon? You're courting death." He was currently infatuated with the little black dragon and cared for it 100 times more than a lover. How could he allow a demon beast to attack the little black dragon? He angrily roared and his body shone with golden light, forming a pair of golden wings. He unsheathed the golden sword on his back with both hands. "Sky Lion Sacred Sword." Shi Zhongjian angrily roared and wielded the golden sword with both hands. He unleashed his full strength and slashed out 100-meter-long golden sword. This was his secret sword technique of the Golden Lion tribe, one of his trump cards. The sword seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth. It was somewhat similar to Ji Tianqing's Metal Emperor Slash. Its power was comparable to that of a 5th-level Heaven Origin stage cultivator. The blazing golden eagle pounced toward the little black dragon. It was too fast for it to dodge even when it sensed something was wrong. Pang! The gigantic golden sword that could split heaven and earth struck the flaming golden eagle, causing an earth-shattering boom to erupt. Immediately, the majestic blazing golden eagle was cleaved in half by the enormous golden sword. Blood splattered everywhere. The enormous golden sword didn't lose any of its power. It continued to strike the mountain below. Chapter 952. The ferocious flaming golden eagle was slain by Shi Zhongjian before it could even touch the little black dragon. There was also a 10,000-meter tall mountain that was cleaved in half by his sword. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku raised their eyebrows at this scene. A hint of surprise flashed through their eyes. "I didn't expect this guy to be so powerful. It's actually comparable to the full-powered attack of a 5th-level Sky Origin stage cultivator. The Golden Lion clan's secret sword techniques are truly extraordinary." Ji Tianqing nodded his head slightly and exclaimed. Ji Ku chuckled and said, "He's so infatuated with the little black dragon. It's like he's fallen in love with a beauty at first sight." That flaming golden eagle tried to attack the little black dragon. How could it have ended well? The little black dragon said sullenly, "Cuckoo, don't make it sound so mushy. I don't even want to carry him anymore." Ji Ku wanted to laugh but held back. Ji Tianqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At this moment, Xian Yu, who was resting in the 100 treasures brocade pouch, interjected with a teasing tone, "Little black dragon, don't look down on him. He truly loves you. I saw him lying on your back, hugging and touching you. He wanted nothing more than to kiss you." The little black dragon didn't say anything. After a long while, he said in a low muffled voice, "Old Ji, I'm going back to the pouch to rest. Let Xian Yu carry you." Ha ha ha. Xian Yu couldn't stop laughing. He said proudly, "The pouch has been monopolized by me. There's no place for you. Don't come back." The little black dragon had a belly full of anger, but he had nowhere to vent it. At this moment, Shi Zhongjian flew back and landed on the little black dragon's back. He looked at Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku and asked expectantly, "Young Master Ji, little sister Ji Ku, how was it? The Heavenly Lion's sacred sword was pretty good, right?" Ji Tianqing nodded and gave a fair evaluation. "Yes, he does have some outstanding qualities," said Ji Tianqing. Shi Zhongjian was filled with joy and satisfaction after receiving his affirmation. The little black dragon said in a heavy voice, "Shi Zhongjian, I won't carry you. You can fly behind me." Shi Zhongjian felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over his head as he asked in astonishment, "Little black dragon, why aren't you carrying me? I just saved you." The little black dragon hesitated for a moment before saying in a deep voice, "Only if you promise that you will know your place and stop touching me." Shi Zhongjian looked embarrassed. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku immediately turned their faces away. They held back their laughter, but their shoulders kept shaking. After a while, Shi Zhongjian assured the little black dragon that he would behave himself. The little black dragon then continued its journey, carrying the group towards the evil dragon pool. The night passed quickly, and they didn't encounter any more danger. It wasn't until noon the next day that the little black dragon flew near a mountain range shrouded in white clouds that it finally slowed down. It followed Ji Tianqing's instructions and slowly moved forward in the mountains, circling and dancing. Ji Tianqing looked down at the mountains and forests below, his sharp eyes searching for something. Shi Zhongjian looked confused and hurriedly asked, "Young Master Ji, what are you looking for? Let me help you." Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "This place is about 20,000 miles away from the southern wasteland city. According to the map, the evil dragon pool should be in this area." The evil dragon pool? We've arrived so quickly. Shi Zhongjian was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He hurriedly took out the map to compare. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, "No need for the map. I've memorized it all." Ah! Shi Zhongjian was shocked and asked in disbelief, such a complicated map with tens of thousands of lines and thousands of regions. "You've memorized it all?" "Yes." Ji Tianqing calmly replied. His eyes continued to search the mountains. Shi Zhongjian was silent. He looked at Ji Tianqing with a complicated expression. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. Who exactly is this young Master Ji? He is powerful, mysterious, and has a black dragon. He only saw the map once in the inn, but he has memorized it all. This is unbelievable. Fortunately, he is a gentleman. If he was a treacherous person, I would have been useless after memorizing the map. He could have just left me and acted alone. Thinking of this, Shi Zhongjian was even more in awe of Ji Tianqing. At this time, Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed. He shouted, "Found it! It's over there!" Shi Zhongjian and Ji Ku looked in the direction he was pointing. They saw a deep valley surrounded by mountains 100 miles away. In the valley surrounded by dark green forests, there was a jade pool with a radius of dozens of miles. It was noon. The sun shone on the surface of the pool, reflecting golden light. It was very beautiful. The pool was green and clear, as calm as a mirror. The little black dragon carried the three of them to the top of the jade pool. They floated 1,000 meters above the pool. The three of them looked down at the jade pool and carefully observed it. They saw that the jade pool with a radius of more than 50 miles was bottomless. It was deathly silent. The pool was surrounded by dark green forests. There were many strange flowers and plants growing in the forest, which gave off a strong aura of green wood. However, the forest was also silent. There were no traces of demon beasts. "Big Brother Tianqing, this place is a little strange. It's too quiet. There isn't even a bird, snake, or insect." Ji Ku frowned, vaguely feeling that something was wrong. Shi Zhongjian was also puzzled. He whispered, "I thought that the evil dragon would command many demon beasts. I didn't expect that there wouldn't even be a bird around. Young Master Ji, is that evil dragon hiding in the pool? Will it show itself often? How can we see it?" However, Ji Tianqing remained silent and did not say anything. He was using divine telekinesis voice transmission in his mind to summon buried heaven. Burial of heaven, wake up. I have something to ask you." Burial of heaven had been sleeping in Kenshin's tomb, quietly recovering its strength. Ji Tianqing called it a few times before it finally woke up. It replied in a dull voice, "Why are you calling me?" Ji Tianqing quickly explained, "Burial of heaven, I have entered the great swamp of the southern wasteland. I have asked around. There are 3 very strange places where there have been strange phenomena. Maybe we can find some clues there. This is one of the 3 places, called the Evil Dragon Pool. It is said that there is an evil dragon hiding there." He told them the legend of the Evil Dragon Pool. After listening, Burial of Heaven asked calmly, "What is the relationship between the evil dragon and my original form, the broken sword?" Ji Tianqing thought for a while and analyzed, Burial of Heaven, your original form, the broken sword, is a divine sword. A divine sword is different from an ordinary sword. After sleeping for 1,000 years, it is very likely that it has gained some intelligence. If the broken sword fell into this pool, after 1,000 years, it could absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Maybe it could recover some of its strength. If the broken sword flew up to the sky, it might show some earth-shattering phenomena, causing the heaven and earth to change. Ordinary people are ignorant and don't dare to come close to check. They only see it from afar and mistakenly think that the evil dragon is causing trouble. Therefore, people believe the rumors and believe that there is an evil dragon here. Chapter 953. Although the broken sword was Burial of Heaven's original body, it had been thousands of years ago. However, the broken sword had been lost for thousands of years. Buried Heaven had no idea what the broken sword looked like now. It thought about it carefully and felt that Ji Tianqing's guess was reasonable. It wasn't impossible. Ji Tianqing flew above the lake of jade and observed it closely. He asked Burial of Heaven, can you sense the aura of the original body of the divine sword? Burial of Heaven sensed for a while and said in a low voice, I can't. Ji Tianqing frowned and muttered doubtfully, is it because you can't sense the aura of the divine sword, or is the divine sword not here at all? Burial of Heaven was silent and didn't answer. After all, thousands of years had passed. Everything would change. Things that were once familiar would become unfamiliar and unknown. Ji Tianqing didn't say anything else. He released his spiritual sense into the lake and began to search carefully. In the sky, Shi Zhongjian and Ji Ku also flew to the surface of the lake and spread out to search. Although the legend said that the evil dragon was very fierce and had the power to summon the wind and rain, the people didn't fear it. However, the three of them were not afraid at all. Instead, they were very interested and couldn't wait to find that evil dragon. Ji Tianqing wanted to find the evil dragon because he wanted to see if it was related to the divine sword. Shi Zhongjian wanted to see the evil dragon because he still remembered Ji Tianqing's words. He wanted to subdue the evil dragon. Unfortunately, the three of them spent 2 hours searching around the lake of jade several times, but they didn't find any trace of the evil dragon. Not to mention the evil dragon, the three of them didn't even find a small fish or a small shrimp. This lake of jade was like a pool of stagnant water. There were no living things at all. The three of them gathered together and began to discuss countermeasures. Young Master Ji, what should we do? Big Brother Tianqing, do you have any ideas? Shi Zhongjian and Ji Ku both looked at Ji Tianqing with anticipation in their eyes. Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a while. He analyzed, according to the past, the evil dragon doesn't show up often. It only comes out every few years to stir up trouble. If we don't have heaven-defying luck, we won't encounter it on its own. Therefore, we can only think of a way to make some noise and force it to show itself. Ji Ku vaguely understood what he meant and nodded in agreement. Shi Zhongjian was at a loss and asked, how do we force it out? Ji Tianqing didn't answer. Instead, he revealed a playful smile and slowly raised his right palm to slap the pool. A huge golden palm shadow that was as big as a house appeared. It erupted with an earth-shattering might as it slapped the surface of the water with a bang sound. Instantly, a muffled sound spread over a radius of 100 miles, reverberating fiercely between the mountains. A huge crater appeared on the calm surface of the water. Huge waves that were 100 meters high were stirred up, and water splashed everywhere. Such a huge commotion was enough to alarm everyone within a radius of 100 miles. Seeing this, Shi Zhongjian suddenly understood. He waved his palms and unleashed a golden light, using his secret technique. I see. Young Master Ji, watch my ultimate move. As he spoke, he activated his vast and mighty true essence and condensed it into a pair of huge golden claws that were as big as a palace. He slapped the water fiercely. Sky-seizing claw. Bang bang. The two huge golden claws created two huge craters on the surface of the water. Water splashed everywhere and huge waves splashed everywhere. Then, Shi Zhongjian manipulated the two huge claws and quickly stirred them in the water. Suddenly, the entire lake of jade boiled. The water in the lake surged violently, creating layers of huge waves. As the two huge claws moved faster and faster, a huge whirlpool appeared in the middle of the lake. After 100 breaths, the whirlpool expanded to a radius of 15 miles, occupying almost half of the lake. The entire lake was stirred up by Shi Zhongjian. Huge waves that were hundreds of meters high were stirred up, crazily washing the forests and mountains around the lake. Shi Zhongjian stopped and smiled proudly. Young Master Ji, even if the lake is 1,000 meters deep, as long as the evil dragon is hiding at the bottom of the lake, it will definitely be awakened. Ji Tianqing stared at the lake for a while and did not see the evil dragon. He could not help but sigh. Unfortunately, the lake is more than 1,000 meters deep. It's like a bottomless well. Shi Zhongjian was unwilling to give up. He stared at the lake with his eyes wide open and prayed silently in his heart. Soon, 15 minutes passed. The huge whirlpool that stirred the lake slowly dissipated. The surface of the lake became calm again. The evil dragon did not appear. Ji Tianqing shook his head and said, "We failed. We have to think of another way." Shi Zhongjian had to accept this reality. He asked with disappointment, "Young Master Ji, could the evil dragon have left long ago? Or maybe we're in the wrong place?" Ji Tianqing did not answer him. He frowned and thought for a while. Then, he said in a low voice, "Let's try another method. If it still fails, we can only give up." Then, he waved at the little black dragon. The little black dragon immediately understood. It swooped down from the sky and stopped on the surface of the lake. Then, it opened its huge dragon mouth and let out an earth-shattering dragon roar at the lake. Roar! The little black dragon used all its power to let out a dragon roar. It was full of energy and shook the 9 heavens. The entire pool was shaken to the point where the water in the pool was surging like boiling water. The mountains around the pool also trembled a few times. Shi Zhongjian's eyes lit up. He said excitedly, this method is too wonderful. No matter how deep the evil dragon is hiding, it will definitely appear when it hears the roar of its own kind." After he finished speaking, he looked at the pool expectantly like Ji Tianqing. Ji Ku also stared at the lake. He clenched his fists tightly and his heart was filled with anticipation. Unknowingly, 100 breaths of time passed. The dragon roar that reverberated through the mountains gradually dissipated. The lake also calmed down. However, the evil dragon still did not appear. The anticipation and hope in the eyes of the 3 people gradually dissipated and was gradually replaced by disappointment. A moment later, Ji Tianqing sighed in disappointment. "Sigh, it seems that the evil dragon will not appear." Shi Zhongjian was unwilling to give up. He probed, "Young Master Ji, I still have one last idea. We can dive into the lake and find the evil dragon at the bottom." Ji Tianqing glanced at him and said in a serious tone, "This lake is the evil dragon's lair. It must be very dangerous. If you rashly enter the lake, your life will be in danger." Shi Zhongjian silently weighed the pros and cons. Then, he nodded and said, "It's fine. I'm not afraid of danger." Ji Tianqing frowned and was about to persuade him. At this time, he suddenly saw a huge black shadow under the calm lake. It was quickly rising and growing. The mysterious black shadow was hazy and could not be seen clearly. However, he felt an extremely dangerous aura. Not good. The evil dragon is coming out. Get out of the way. Subconsciously, he let out a low growl and retreated high up into the sky with Ji Ku. Shi Zhongjian came back to his senses. He turned his head and saw the huge black shadow under the water. His first reaction was not to retreat. Instead, he was filled with excitement and shouted in a low voice. Chapter 954. Whoosh! The next moment, the massive and mysterious black silhouette in the pool charged out of the water, creating a huge splash. A huge dark gray flood dragon rushed out from the pool and rushed into the sky as fast as lightning. Boom! The excited Shi Zhongjian had no time to dodge and was sent flying by the dragon's head. Soon after, the dark gray flood dragon flew out of the pool and viciously lunged at the little black dragon in the sky. Only now did the crowd clearly see that this dark gray flood dragon was over 1,000 meters long. It was massive and mighty to the extreme. Its head was as large as a house and its dark green eyes were as large as water tanks. Its massive body, 100 feet thick, was covered in dark gray scales. Its 4 large claws exuded a savage aura. Ji Tianqing instantly recognized it. When he probed its strength, his expression changed. It's an azure dragon. A soul-tempering azure dragon. At the same time, the azure dragon lunged in front of the little black dragon. It opened its bloody maw and let out a dragon's roar that shook the heavens. Roar! Ji Tianqing had originally thought that the azure dragon would directly attack the little black dragon. Just as he was preparing to use his full strength to block, the azure dragon stopped in front of the little black dragon. Its eyes were fixed on the little black dragon. Its body exuded an invisible dragon's might as it constantly uttered strange syllables. The little black dragon was 10 times smaller than the azure dragon. It was like a small snake in front of the azure dragon, appearing extremely weak. Hearing the azure dragon's voice, the little black dragon also constantly uttered strange syllables, as if communicating with the azure dragon. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku stood in the sky nearby, warily looking at the azure dragon. The two of them were ready to act. The moment the azure dragon showed any intention of attacking the little black dragon, they would immediately intervene. Fortunately, the azure dragon did not seem to have any enmity towards the little black dragon, nor did it show any signs of attacking. Soon, Shi Zhongjian flew over from the distance and landed beside Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku. His hair was somewhat disheveled and there was still a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. The golden armor he wore had also dimmed. It was obvious that he was severely injured when he was sent flying by the azure dragon. However, he ignored his injuries and stared at the Tsang dragon curiously. His eyes shone with excitement. "Young Master Ji, what is that azure dragon doing?" Ji Tianqing calmly said, "It looks like he's communicating with the little black dragon." "Oh, no wonder I couldn't understand a single word. It turns out that they were speaking Draconic." Shi Zhongjian nodded in realization. At this moment, the azure dragon and little black dragon conversed for a while before turning to look at Ji Tianqing and the others. It stared coldly at the three of them. Its body exuded a powerful and majestic aura, which caused a hurricane to form in the sky. Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows. He secretly gathered his strength and prepared to defend against the azure dragon's attack. Shi Zhongjian was also eager to give it a try. He rubbed his palms together and looked at Song Long with eyes full of hope and desire. He waited for 100 breaths of time. Seeing that the azure dragon and the little black dragon were still talking, he became a little anxious. He lowered his voice and asked Ji Tianqing, "Young Master Ji, what are they talking about?" Ji Tianqing expressionlessly replied, "How would I know? I don't understand Draconic." Shi Zhongjian hesitated for a moment before asking, "Young Master Ji, then when do we make our move?" "Make our move?" Ji Tianqing raised his brows and looked at him in confusion. Shi Zhongjian's eyes lit up. He nodded and said, "That's right. We're going to subdue this azure dragon." Ji Tianqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He unhappily said, "That azure dragon's strength has reached the spirit refinement realm. It's at least at the second or third level of the spirit refinement realm. Are you sure you want to make a move against it? Shi Zhongjian was stunned. He subconsciously asked, young Master Ji, could it be that even you are not a match for that azure dragon? Ji Tianqing tilted his head and looked at him in silence. Shi Zhongjian was silent for a moment. He unwillingly said, young Master Ji, since we can't do it the hard way, then let's do it the soft way. What hard way or soft way? What are you trying to do? Ji Tianqing frowned. He had a bad premonition. Watch me. Shi Zhongjian didn't explain. He revealed a confident smile. Then, Shi Zhongjian waved at the little black dragon not far away. He loudly said, little black dragon, I have something to say to the azure dragon. Please help me translate it. As he spoke, he flew towards the azure dragon and the little black dragon. Ji Tianqing sensed that something was wrong. He worriedly said, Lion, don't do anything rash. That azure dragon is not a kind creature. Shi Zhongjian waved his hand at him and said with a smile, young Master Ji, don't worry. I won't make a move against it. I'll have a good talk with it. Ji Tianqing was full of helplessness. He just wanted to roll his eyes at him. Ji Ku didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He anxiously and worriedly said, isn't this guy too stupid? Why hasn't he given up yet? At the same time, the little black dragon turned to look at Shi Zhongjian. He anxiously said, what are you doing here? Hurry up and leave. If I hadn't persuaded the azure dragon, it would have already attacked you. Shi Zhongjian didn't care. He excitedly flew to its side and looked at the azure dragon expectantly. Hello azure dragon. My name is Shi Zhongjian. I'm a prince of the Golden Lion clan and the second disciple of the Hidden God sect. I've always yearned to be a flood dragon since I was young. Shi Zhongjian revealed a sincere smile. He sincerely introduced himself to the azure dragon and blabbered on and on. However, the azure dragon looked down at him from above. Its large eyes were as cold as ice. There was no emotion in them. After Shi Zhongjian finished speaking, he hurriedly said to the little black dragon, hurry up and translate it for me. The little black dragon revealed a helpless expression. He hurriedly shouted to Ji Tianqing, old Ji, hurry up and send this idiot back. I've already asked clearly. The azure dragon has nothing to do with what we're looking for. Moreover, the azure dragon told us not to disturb its cultivation. It told us to hurry up and leave. Otherwise, it won't be polite. After saying this, he added in a serious tone, this azure dragon is extremely vicious and violent. For hundreds of years, it has wreaked havoc in a radius of 5,000 kilometers. It has swallowed and killed at least 10,000 people. Ji Tianqing nodded. He solemnly shouted to Shi Zhongjian, Lion, hurry up and come back. This azure dragon is an evil dragon. It has the strength of a spirit refinement realm cultivator. There's no way it can be tamed by you. Give up. Shi Zhongjian repeatedly shook his head. He said in a pleading tone, young Master Ji, please let me try. Just treat it as fulfilling a wish of mine. If I miss this opportunity, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Ji Tianqing considered this for a moment. He helplessly nodded and said, all right. Then be careful. The little black dragon had nothing to say. It could only translate Shi Zhongjian's words to the azure dragon in the dragon language. After the azure dragon heard this, it coldly stared at Shi Zhongjian. It slowly extended a front claw toward him. Shi Zhongjian's spirits were immediately lifted. He excitedly welcomed the azure dragon's claw with open arms. Chapter 955. Bang! Shi Zhongjian was sent flying by the azure dragon's claw. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell into the pool. However, he did not seem to feel pain as he hurriedly crawled out of the pool and flew back to the azure dragon. He shouted with an aggrieved expression, "Hey, you despicable fellow. I was so kind to you, but you actually treated me like this. You really don't know how to appreciate kindness." Then, he hurriedly waved his hand at the little black dragon and said, "You don't have to translate this sentence." Everyone was speechless. Shi Zhongjian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and circulated his energy to suppress his injuries. He continued to speak to the Azure Dragon, "Azure Dragon, I invite you to leave this lousy pool with utmost sincerity. This place is too desolate. You must be bored and lonely here, right? Moreover, this place is very barren and scarce in resources. You have no future in cultivating here. Come back to the divine hidden sect with me. Our sect is very powerful and has abundant resources. We also have all sorts of ancient secret treasures and ultimate techniques. I guarantee that your strength will increase by leaps and bounds. Moreover, we can confer you the title of Divine Guardian Beast and give you the highest status and treatment. Think about it carefully." After speaking, Shi Zhongjian looked at the little black dragon expectantly and said, "Little black dragon, quickly translate for him." The little black dragon hesitated for a moment and looked at Ji Tianqing's expression. Seeing that he did not stop it, it spoke to the Azure Dragon in the dragon language. The Azure Dragon was still expressionless after hearing it. Its eyes were as cold as ice. It once again stretched out its huge dragon claw and slowly extended it towards Shi Zhongjian. Shi Zhongjian's eyes lit up with the flames of hope. He looked at the Azure Dragon expectantly and asked, "Azure Dragon, do you feel my sincerity? I'm inviting you with all my heart." Before he could finish speaking, the huge dragon claw swept towards him again. Bang! Shi Zhongjian was once again sent flying by the Azure Dragon's claw. He drew an arc in the air and fell towards the water in the distance. This time, his injuries were even more severe. The golden armor he was wearing was shattered, and his golden hair was scattered all over his body. While he was still in the air, he spat out a mouthful of blood and splashed it onto the water. Splash! Shi Zhongjian fell into the pool and sank to the bottom of the pool in a daze. It took him quite a while to wake up. He forced his heavily injured body to fly out of the pool, swaying as he flew back into the sky. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku couldn't bear to see him in such a miserable state and hurriedly tried to dissuade him. "Lion, don't be stubborn. Come back quickly. If you take another 2 hits, you'll be dead." "Shi Zhongjian. Can you not be so naive? The dragon race is proud, especially when this Azure Dragon is at the soul refinement realm. How could it possibly leave with you?" Shi Zhongjian turned to look at the two of them and bowed. "Young Master Ji, little sister Ji Ku, thank you for your concern. I know that my thoughts and actions may seem foolish to you. But this is my long-cherished wish and dream. In order to realize this dream, I am willing to give up everything. Even if my dream is unreachable, I will fight for it with all my might. If I don't even dare to try, then what difference am I from a salted fish?" Ji Ku was startled. He frowned and said, "This guy. What he said seems to make sense." Ji Tianqing sighed helplessly and said, "Forget it, let him go. Even if we persuade him to come back, he won't give up." He had already mentally prepared himself. Even if Azure Dragon was enraged and wanted to kill them, he was confident that he could stop Azure Dragon and bring everyone to escape safely. At this moment, Shi Zhongjian swayed as he flew back to Azure Dragon. He forced himself to support his heavily injured body and stubbornly looked at Azure Dragon. He said sincerely, "Azure Dragon, although you've reached the soul refinement realm, you've cultivated for hundreds and thousands of years to have such powerful strength. But I'm different. I can reach your current strength in at most 20 years. I know you look down on me and think that I'm weak and unworthy to be your companion. But as long as you're willing to return to the sect with me, I can catch up to you and even surpass you in at most 20 years. What future do you have in the great swamp of the southern wasteland? Can you reach the primordial spirit realm? Can you have a chance to touch the legendary heavenly tribulation? Only by following me will you have a chance and hope. I'll treat you like a lover and take good care of you. I'll live and die with you and share trials and tribulations with you. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ke frowned, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. The little black dragon couldn't help but mutter, Azure Dragon is a man. Are you courting death? Shi Zhongjian's expression was solemn as he said these words. He had the little black dragon translate them again. Tsang Long finally frowned after hearing the story. His icy eyes flickered with a sharp glint. But this time, it didn't reach out with its dragon claws. Instead, it opened its bloody mouth and let out a resounding dragon roar. Roar! It roared at the little black dragon and Shi Zhongjian, then roared in dragon language. The little black dragon immediately lowered its head and circled around Azure Dragon, explaining in dragon language. After saying this, it didn't care whether Shi Zhongjian agreed or not. It grabbed Shi Zhongjian with its dragon claws and flew toward Ji Tianqing and Ji Ke. Old Ji, Azure Dragon is angry. It wants us to leave immediately, or it'll start a massacre. It hasn't attacked for my sake, but its patience has reached its limit. Ji Tianqing frowned as he silently weighed the pros and cons. This Azure Dragon has nothing to do with the divine sword. I don't need to waste time here. With its strength, even if I can defeat it, I'll have to pay a heavy price. Kuku, Shi Zhongjian, and the little black dragon are not its match. It's very likely that they'll be killed. It's impossible to subdue it. Even if it can't defeat it, it can still escape back into the pool. This pool is like a bottomless abyss. I don't know what dangers lie at the bottom of the pool. If I enter the pool and fight with it, I won't be able to gain anything. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing made up his mind. He flew onto the little black dragon's back with Ji Ke and quickly left the pool. The Azure Dragon hovered above the pool. Seeing the little black dragon carrying everyone away, it turned around and dove into the pool. Splash! The calm surface of the water splashed up, creating huge waves. After the Azure Dragon entered the water, it quickly disappeared. After a long time, the surface of the water returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. The little black dragon flew into the sea of clouds and quickly left the evil dragon pool. Shi Zhongjian was covered in blood. His nose was bruised and his face was swollen. He looked miserable as he lay on the little black dragon's back, gasping for breath. Ji Tianqing cast a spell to suppress his injuries. He couldn't help but ask, Shi Zhongjian, are you stupid? Shi Zhongjian wasn't angry at all. His eyes were shining as he excitedly said, that's great. I can see the hope of success. Young Master Ji, do you see? The Azure Dragon sent me flying twice before, but the last time, it only roared a few times and didn't attack me. What does this mean? It must have felt my sincerity and its will has been shaken. Ji Tianqing was speechless. Chapter 956. Shi Zhongjian's stubbornness and naivety made Ji Tianqing and Ji Ke feel helpless. Because this was no longer naivety, it was almost the same as foolishness. Ji Tianqing took out a pill and threw it to Shi Zhongjian. He said unhappily, Shi Zhongjian, you better give up. Don't even think about going back to find that Azure Dragon. I'm in a hurry and have important things to do. I can't risk my life with you. Shi Zhongjian stuffed the pill into his mouth and chewed it before swallowing it. He quickly nodded and said, Young Master Ji, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. As the saying goes, more haste, less speed. I've already left a deep impression on the Azure Dragon. It will definitely remember me. Although its will has been shaken, it will definitely need time to consider. It's not suitable for me to go back now. It won't make a decision so quickly. So, I have to wait patiently. When I return to the sect, I'll report this to my master. Then, I'll bring my master and elders to negotiate with it. With my master and elder's strength, they will definitely be able to persuade it. If they can't, then we'll tie it up and bring it back to the sect. Ha ha ha. Ji Ku looked at him sympathetically and sighed again. Sigh, this guy is crazy. He still won't give up. Ji Tianqing frowned and thought to himself, this guy knows that the Azure Dragon's strength has reached the soul refining realm, but he still has so much confidence in his master and elders. Could it be that his master and elders also have the strength of the soul refining realm? I've never heard of any sect having soul refining realm experts in the southern continent. I've never heard of the Hidden God sect either. He was very confused and decided to investigate the Hidden God sect after returning to the central continent. For the next few days, the little black dragon flew and hurried towards the depths of the great swamp of the southern wilderness. When the Azure Dragon appeared at the evil dragon pond, Ji Tianqing was sure that the Azure Dragon had nothing to do with the divine sword. The little black dragon also asked the Azure Dragon, but it knew nothing about the broken sword. After Ji Tianqing was sure that the evil dragon pond had nothing to do with the divine sword, he decided to leave without wasting any time. His next target was the Rainbow Forest, one of the three wondrous realms. After all, the seven-colored forest was only 80,000 miles away from the evil dragon pool. Carefree Mountain was located in the depths of the great swamp, and that mysterious giant mountain would often move, appearing and disappearing. Therefore, Ji Tianqing wanted to first go to the Rainbow Forest to find out what was going on, and then finally go to Carefree Mountain. Unknowingly, 5 days had passed. In these 5 days, the group had been attacked by many powerful demonic beasts on their way. Most of those demonic beasts were heavenly origin stage demon kings. A few of them had even teamed up to attack the group. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing's battle prowess was terrifyingly strong. After using his secret technique, he quickly killed the attacking demon king. Shi Zhongjian had been recuperating the entire time. When he saw Ji Tianqing easily killing those powerful demon kings, he was extremely shocked. However, he didn't forget to cheer. After 5 days of recuperation, his injuries were no longer a problem, but his strength was still a little weak, with only 50% of his strength left. On the evening of the 6th day, they finally arrived at the Rainbow Forest. Ji Tianqing stood on the little black dragon's back and looked at the scenery in front of him. He saw that the towering mountains and precipitous ridges gradually disappeared, and in front of him was a boundless primitive forest. In the dark green forest, towering ancient trees that were 100 meters tall grew. The forest was covered with thick and sturdy vines, and dense thorns grew all over the place. Above the forest was a thick layer of rainbow-colored clouds. The boundless sea of rainbow-colored clouds quietly flowed and bloomed with brilliant colors under the sunlight. It was very dreamy. Ji Tianqing knew that the colorful sea of rainbow-colored clouds looked pleasing to the eye, but in reality, it was a poisonous fog that could take away a person's life. He had the little black dragon slow down and slowly descend towards that lush forest. Whoosh! The little black dragon landed at the edge of the seven-colored forest, instantly crushing several towering trees and creating several large holes in the soft grass. Ji Tianqing, Ji Ku, and Shi Zhongjian jumped onto the grass and looked around with vigilance and curiosity. The little black dragon hurriedly shrunk its body to 3 meters long and circled above everyone's heads. After all, the seven-colored forest was too dense. If it revealed its true dragon body, it would be very inconvenient for it to move. Ji Tianqing looked around and released his spiritual sense to explore the depths of the forest. He saw that the forest was filled with strange flowers and grass. There were many nameless trees that bore brightly colored fruits. Many birds with beautiful feathers were jumping between the branches and leaves of the towering trees, chirping and chirping. In the grass that was half the height of a person, there were also many colorful butterflies, bees, and snakes lazily moving about. Shi Zhongjian looked around curiously and asked Ji Tianqing, "Young Master Ji, is this the legendary seven-colored forest? Where are the bee-men and butterfly men that you mentioned before?" Ji Tianqing ignored his words and couldn't be bothered to explain. Ji Ku held back his laughter and said, Shi Zhongjian, this is the edge of the seven-colored forest. How can we see those foreign races so easily? Shi Zhongjian nodded and said expectantly, then what are we waiting for? Let's go in and take a look. Be careful. Most of the things here are poisonous. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and led the group into the seven-colored forest. Ji Ku nodded and looked around cautiously. He also used his spiritual sense to monitor the movements on the ground. However, Shi Zhongjian did not take his words to heart. His eyes rolled around, and he had a curious look on his face. Not long after the group entered the seven-colored forest, he exclaimed excitedly. This butterfly is so big. It's bigger than a wash basin. Wow, little sister Ji Ku, look. This little wasp is bigger than my face. The fruit on this tree smells so good. It's so tempting. It must be delicious. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku stopped and turned to look at him worriedly. Don't pick it. That thing is poisonous. The brighter and more tempting the fruit, the more. Before the two of them could finish their words, they saw Shi Zhongjian pick a fist-sized red fruit from the tree and chew it with a satisfied expression. The fruit was like an apple. It was translucent and bright red, and it emitted a rich fruity aroma. Shi Zhongjian took a few bites and the juice from the fruit splattered everywhere. He smiled and said, Young Master Ji, little sister Ji Ku, this fruit is quite tasty. It's a spirit fruit. You should try it too. Ji Tianqing frowned and waved his hand, sending out a beam of spiritual light and snatching the fruit from his hand. Oh! Shi Zhongjian was stunned. He scratched his head awkwardly and said, Young Master Ji, if you want to eat it, you can pick it yourself. I've eaten this before. Don't you think it's dirty? Ji Tianqing ignored him. He held the half-eaten fruit in his right hand and circulated his true essence golden light to absorb the fruit's energy. After a few breaths, the fruit became as shriveled as a pine cone. The golden light in his palm was wrapped in a five-colored liquid that was violently corroding the true essence golden light. There was no doubt that the five-colored liquid was highly poisonous and had a strong corrosive power. Ji Tianqing looked at Shi Zhongjian with a serious expression and said, Do you see that? This fruit is highly poisonous. Hurry up and spit it out. Take the antidote pill. Shi Zhongjian was also stunned. He muttered gloomily, such a sweet and tempting spirit fruit is poisonous. Damn it. He patted his chest and smiled at Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku. Don't worry. The bloodline of the Golden Lion tribe is very strong. We are immune to all poisons. Chapter 957. In just a few short breaths, Shi Zhongjian's entire face was as red as blood, and his lips were swollen like sausages. Fortunately, he did not continue to foam at the mouth, nor did he faint on the spot. He staggered back to Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku's side, muttering in confusion, This shouldn't be. Our Golden Lion tribe's bloodline has always been immune to all poisons. Could it be that I've encountered the 101st poison? Ji Ku could not help but roll her eyes. She said exasperatedly, Shi Zhongjian, can you not be so reckless at a time like this? Can you stop causing trouble for Big Brother Tianqing? Shi Zhongjian hurriedly smiled and nodded. Little sister Ji Ku is right. I was too reckless and careless. But don't worry, I won't cause trouble for young Master Ji. Ji Tianqing could not be bothered to talk nonsense with him. He took out an antidote pill from his interspatial ring and handed it to Shi Zhongjian. Shi Zhongjian, take this antidote pill and circulate your cultivation for an hour. Shi Zhongjian hurriedly shook his head and refused. Young Master Ji, there's no need to go through so much trouble. I don't need a pill to expel the poison. Ji Tianqing frowned and took back the antidote pill. He asked, How do you feel now? Is your life in danger? Shi Zhongjian shook his head again and smiled. Other than my face being a little hot and my head being a little dizzy, I don't feel anything special. Then, he sat cross-legged on the ground and clasped his hands together. He used the Golden Lion tribe's secret technique to expel the poison. His entire body surged with golden light. There was a mysterious and powerful energy coursing through his meridians, faintly emitting the sound of wind and thunder. In a short 100 breaths, Shi Zhongjian finished circulating his cultivation. He opened his mouth and spat out a cloud of 7-colored mist. Then, his complexion returned to normal. The poison in his body had also been expelled. Only his lips were still swollen. They looked like 2 red and shiny sausages. They looked particularly comical. Shi Zhongjian crawled up from the ground and gave Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku a smug smile. He clapped his hands and said, "All right, I'm fine now. You got rid of the poison so quickly." Ji Ku looked at him in surprise. She was quite surprised. Ji Tianqing was no longer surprised and finally believed what he had said. The Golden Lion clan's bloodline could indeed resist poison. The 3 of them continued forward, rushing into the depths of the forest. When they left the place and entered the dense forest, the large butterflies and bees wandering in the grass nearby quickly gathered. Swish! Swish! Colorful spiritual light flashed, and the butterflies and bees that were the size of wash basins all transformed into tiny figures that were 1 meter tall. There were butterfly people with large butterfly wings and colorful dresses. There were also bee people with bee wings and dark golden robes. These little people were all about 1 meter tall, and their limbs and facial features were similar to humans. They looked delicate and beautiful, and smart and cute. They gathered together and looked in the direction where Ji Tianqing and the other 2 had left, whispering to each other. The language spoken by these little people was very special. It was a language unique to their race. Moreover, when they were whispering to each other, their colorful eyes flashed with cold light and sneers that harbored evil intentions. Ji Tianqing and the other 2 walked through the forest for 2 hours, covering a distance of more than 150 kilometers. At this time, they had already entered the rainbow forest. The forest was dark and filled with towering trees and shrubs. Above everyone's heads were lush branches and leaves, and above the forest were thick colorful clouds. Even the sun couldn't shine through. At this time, the sound of flowing water came from the depths of the forest in front of them. There was also a clear and melodious song. Ji Tianqing and the other 2 looked at each other, and a look of anticipation appeared in their eyes. They said excitedly, "We're finally here. Are those little fairies singing? That's great. We'll see those little fairies soon. Be careful. We can't be careless. After all, we don't know if those little fairies are good or evil." Ji Tianqing reminded Ji Ku and Shi Zhongjian. Then, he quickly increased his speed and rushed forward. After a while, the 3 of them arrived at a clear stream. This was a stream about 20 feet wide. It flowed through the forest, and the water was so clear that one could see the bottom. The bottom of the stream was covered with white pebbles and river sand. Many finger-long fish could be seen swimming in it. 2 little people, each 1 meter tall, were playing happily in the stream. They were laughing cheerfully and singing melodious songs. One of the 2 little people was a butterfly person with wide wings. This was a girl with purple curly hair. Her facial features were very delicate, and her colorful eyes were very special. They revealed an intelligent and lively light. She was wearing a colorful long dress. Her small hands and feet were fair and translucent. She looked very cute. The other little person was a bee person. He had 4 translucent wings, long golden hair, and golden eyes. He was a boy with very handsome facial features. He was wearing golden armor, and there was a golden bee stinger short sword at his waist. He looked quite heroic. The purple-haired butterfly girl and the golden-haired bee boy were flying around in the air above the stream, laughing and playing. They looked innocent and carefree. Ji Tianqing, Ji Ku, and Shi Zhongjian stood by the stream in a daze. Their faces were full of surprise. The Creator is really amazing. There's actually such a strange race in the world, and they're so exquisite and perfect. It looks like the human race isn't favored by the heavens. Wow, what a cute butterfly person and bee person. They're so handsome and beautiful. They're like the fairies in the legends. They're carefree, innocent, and cute. Master is right. The outside world is indeed colorful. I didn't expect to see so many magical scenes on my first adventure. This is a beautiful scene that I haven't seen in the history books. At the same time, the butterfly girl and bee boy noticed the arrival of the three of them and immediately stopped. They weren't frightened by the three uninvited guests. Instead, they looked happy and sized up the three of them with bright eyes. The two of them hesitated for a moment, then flew toward Ji Tianqing and the others. They said in unison with smiles on their faces, "Harukli, Luya, aren't you, Ji Tianqing and the others looked embarrassed. They didn't understand what they were talking about. Shi Zhongjian showed a sincere smile and waved his hand excitedly to greet them. "Cute fairies, hello. I'm very happy to see you. Although we don't understand what you're talking about, we mean no harm." Hearing his words, the butterfly girl and bee boy were stunned for a moment. Then, they showed sincere and kind smiles. "Hello, guests from afar. I'm Princess Nia. Welcome to the Rainbow Forest." The butterfly girl bowed to the three of them and said with a smile. Chapter 958. Nia and Buddy actually spoke the human language fluently. Ji Tianqing and the other two were stunned and looked at them incredulously. "You can actually speak the human language?" Ji Tianqing was secretly vigilant, his eyes fixed on Nia and Buddy. Ji Ku was full of joy and expectation, thinking to himself, "Nia is actually the little princess of the Rainbow Forest, and the boy Buddy is a guard. I thought they were a couple. However, they seem to be in love with each other. Wow, the princess and the guard sneaking out of the palace for a date, it seems very romantic." After Shi Zhongjian came back to his senses, he laughed excitedly and said to Ji Tianqing, "Look, young Master Ji, they can actually speak the human language commonly used on the continent, it's amazing. Moreover, they are so humble, polite, and very hospitable." Nia and Buddy still maintained their smiles, their postures reserved and polite. In the face of Ji Tianqing's questioning, Nia bowed and explained with a smile, "Young master, just now the golden-haired young master said that the human language is commonly used on the continent. Although our rainbow forest is deep in the great swamp, we have thousands of years of history, so of course we are proficient in the human language. Moreover, our tribe is very hospitable. For thousands of years, countless people have come here to live and play, and we are very happy to communicate with them, so of course it is not difficult to learn their language." After listening to Nia's explanation, Ji Ku and Shi Zhongjian both showed an expression of sudden realization. Ji Tianqing's expression did not change, and he nodded calmly, but secretly thought to himself, "This Nia doesn't seem to be lying, but I keep feeling that something is not right. If the Rainbow Forest is really hospitable, so many people have come here, Southern Wasteland City should have detailed information about them." At this time, Nia bowed to the three again and said with a smile, "Three distinguished guests who have come from afar, looking at your travel-worn appearance, you must be very tired, right? Please follow us to the tribal palace, my father, the great chief, will definitely welcome you warmly." Ji Tianqing nodded calmly, while Ji Ku smiled. Shi Zhongjian, on the other hand, was filled with excitement and anticipation as he cheered. Then, Nia and Buddy walked in front, leading the three of them into the depths of the forest. The group crossed the small stream and passed through the dense forest. After flying continuously for an hour and over 1,000 miles, they finally arrived at a forest castle. This forest castle was very special. It was located in the dense forest and built on countless towering trees. It looked very dreamy. Ji Tianqing and the other two looked around and saw that on the thick and sturdy branches of the towering trees in all directions, there were many small colorful houses built between the dense branches and leaves. On top of a towering tree, there were at least a dozen brightly colored small houses, located on different branches. Those small houses had all kinds of strange shapes. Some were shaped like large mushrooms, some like morning glory, and some like a large pine cone. The small houses were connected by hanging bridges made of vines. Many bee people and butterfly people were shuttling through the branches and between the houses. The elves were the same as Nia and Buddy. They were only 1 meter tall and wore colorful clothes. They looked exquisite and cute. When they saw Nia and Buddy leading Ji Tianqing and the other two into the forest, they immediately gathered in groups of 3 or 5 and whispered to each other. When Ji Tianqing and the other two looked at them, they would all smile and appear very kind. The 3 of them followed Nia into the depths of the castle. Ji Tianqing secretly observed the situation with vigilance, while Ji Ku looked around with admiration. Shi Zhongjian was particularly curious and excited. When he saw many new and strange things, he would exclaim in surprise. After a while, the group passed through the forest with a radius of 10 miles and entered the center of the forest castle. What appeared in front of them were 9 towering trees that were 100 meters tall. These 9 towering trees occupied a radius of 2,000 meters and were arranged in an orderly manner in a circle. In the middle of the 9 trees, there was a castle floating in midair. This castle was built from black ironwood, which was as tough as iron. It was like a human palace. In addition to the black ironwood, the walls and floor of the palace were also mixed with many colorful materials, making the entire palace colorful. Ji Tianqing observed a few times and saw that the base of the palace was connected to 18 bronze chains as thick as buckets, tied to the 9 towering trees around it. It seems that this palace-like castle is the tribal palace of the Rainbow Forest. Nia led the 3 of them outside the palace and walked along the steps toward the gate. On both sides of the steps stood 2 rows of bee people guards in golden armor. Their faces were solemn and their auras were dignified. Seeing Nia's return, the guards all bowed respectfully to her. Nia waved with a smile on her face, indicating for the guards to rise. Then, she led Ji Tianqing and the other 2 into the palace. When they passed through the gate of the palace, a small incident happened. The gate was very tall and imposing for the bee people and butterfly people. In fact, the gate was only 2 meters tall. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku were fine, but Shi Zhongjian's forehead hit the door frame, so he had to bend down and lower his head to pass through. The 3 of them followed Nia into the main hall and saw an exquisite throne made of gold at the head of the hall. On the wide throne sat a bee person wearing a golden robe and a jeweled crown. He was a middle-aged man about 1 meter tall. His cheeks were long and narrow, his aura was dignified, and his eyes were very sharp. He held a dark golden scepter in his hand and looked at Ji Tianqing and the other 2 with a dignified gaze. There was no doubt that this ferocious-looking bee person was the chief of the Rainbow Forest tribe. What surprised Ji Tianqing was that this bee person chief's strength had reached the 2nd level of the spirit refinement realm. Nia walked to the middle of the hall and stood still. She bowed to the chief and said, "Chief, Nia met these 3 guests at the edge of the Rainbow Forest. They came from afar and want to stay in our Rainbow Forest for a few days." After that, Nia introduced them to Ji Tianqing and the other 2. 3 distinguished guests, this is the chief of our tribe. Ji Tianqing and the other 2 immediately understood. They cupped their hands and bowed to the chief with a smile. "Greetings, chief." The chief's sharp gaze swept across the 3 of them. After a moment of silence, he nodded slightly and said, "Welcome. This king is busy with national affairs and has no time to entertain you personally. Let Nia arrange your accommodations. Recently, our Rainbow Forest has been a little unstable. Those damned Earth Spirit bastards have invaded again. After the three of you have settled down, please don't move around so as to avoid being attacked by the earth spirit. Chapter 959. Ji Tianqing and the other two could see that the Hornet Chief was not in a good mood, and his attitude was very cold. They did not stay any longer. After bowing to the chief and bidding him farewell, they left the hall with Nia. Nia led the three of them out of the palace and into the forest at the edge of the palace. She arranged accommodations for the three of them, placing them on different big trees. Ji Tianqing's small house was located on a huge iron pear tree to the east of the palace. Ji Ku lived on a laurel tree to the south of the palace, more than 1,000 meters away from him. Shi Zhongjian was arranged to live on the west side of the palace, far away from Ji Ku and Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing vaguely felt that something was wrong, so he asked Nia, "Princess Nia, why did you arrange it like this? I hope you can arrange accommodations for us again. The three of us have to live next to each other so that we can take care of each other." Nia explained apologetically, "I'm very sorry. Our tribe did not build guest rooms for guests, and we rarely have guests. These 3 rooms were vacated by the people of the tribe. They are relatively close to the palace, and not far from each other. If we change to another room, we will be further away. Please forgive us." Since Nia explained it this way, Ji Tianqing could not say anything more. Ji Ku and Shi Zhongjian did not feel that there was anything wrong. After thanking Nia, they went to their respective rooms. Ji Tianqing also entered the small house and settled down. This small house was only 10 meters square, like a big mushroom in the middle of the tree branches. There was a bedroom, a living room, and a study in the house, and the decorations were clean and tidy. Unfortunately, the room was too small and too short. Ji Tianqing could only walk around with his back bent. The bed in the bedroom was even smaller, and there was no way to sleep at all. He could only sit cross-legged on the bed, silently circulating his energy to regulate his breathing. Soon, night fell. The rainbow forest became dark and very quiet. Only the sound of insects could be heard in the forest. It was quiet all around. On the big trees in the forest, there were lights shining between the branches and leaves. Not far away, the palace was also lit up. Ji Tianqing sat on the small wooden bed and recalled what had happened during the day. He felt that something was wrong. But after thinking about it for a while, he couldn't figure out what the problem was. Those little elves look very friendly and passionate. I hope I'm just overthinking things. He reined in his thoughts and released his spiritual senses to probe Ji Ku's room. He wanted to see how Ji Ku was doing. However, his spiritual sense could only detect a radius of 1,300 meters. He was still hundreds of meters away from Ji Ku's room. After a moment of hesitation, he quietly left the room and flew 100 meters to the south. He silently landed on a big tree. At this time, his spiritual awareness could finally detect Ji Ku's room. Ji Ku's room was very quiet. She was sitting on a small wooden bed, meditating and recovering her quintessential essence. Ji Tianqing observed her for a moment. Seeing that she was fine, he was finally relieved. He retracted his spiritual sense and returned to his room, preparing to circulate his quintessential essence and cultivate. But at this time, the sound of wind whistling through the night came from outside the window. The sound of the wind was not loud. It was like the sound of a bird flapping its wings and stirring up the air. If not for Ji Tianqing's sharp senses, he wouldn't have heard it at all. He instinctively released his spiritual perception and saw a team of golden-armored wasp people in the forest 200 meters away. They were galloping towards the tribal palace from afar. There were a total of 8 wasp people. They were all equipped with wasp stinger swords. Their bodies were filled with cold-killing intent. They were escorting a grayish-brown dwarf. They used ropes made of spider silk to tie up the dwarf's limbs so that he couldn't move. The dwarf was only 1 meter tall. He looked like a lump of stone or a clay doll made of mud. He looked both sturdy and honest. He didn't have wings. His limbs were short and thick, and his body was strong and muscular. His long brown hair was tied into 3 braids with a hair rope made of golden silk. Unfortunately, he was heavily injured. There were several wounds on his chest and back, from which golden blood kept gushing out. His right wrist was also cut off. He struggled with all his might, letting out muffled roars from his mouth. However, he couldn't break the spider silk rope, and it was impossible for him to escape from the 8 wasp guard swords. The wasp guards escorted him through the dark forest and entered a gate at the side of the palace. They quickly disappeared. Ji Tianqing witnessed this scene with his own eyes. He immediately frowned and revealed a puzzled expression. What's the race of the dwarf that looks like a mud man? He's obviously not the same race as the fairies of the rainbow forest. Could he be the earth spirit that the chief mentioned? He had a vague feeling that the fairies of the rainbow forest weren't as friendly as they appeared to be. However, he didn't know much about the fairies and the earth spirit. He also didn't know about the grudges between the 2 races. Therefore, he couldn't come to a conclusion, nor could he make wild guesses. After a while, he collected his thoughts and sat cross-legged on the wooden bed, concentrating on cultivating. Time passed quietly, and the night grew darker. Around 8 hours later, it was already 3:00 in the morning. It was an hour before dawn. It was the time when a person was the most tired and relaxed, but it was also the darkest time of the day. Ji Tianqing was cultivating when he suddenly felt a piercing pain all over his body. His head was faintly dizzy, and his consciousness became a little blurry. Such a strange reaction immediately woke him up. He didn't hesitate to cultivate and protect his body, and he opened his eyes. He saw that in the dark room, there were wisps of colorful fog floating in the air. The colorful fog, which was as thin as hair, contained an extremely potent poison. It floated silently and spread in the room. Ji Tianqing immediately frowned, and a sharp cold light flashed in his eyes. Damn it! Someone actually poisoned me. While he was cultivating to protect himself, he quickly released his spiritual sense to cover a radius of 100 meters, covering the entire tree. He immediately detected that there were a few sneaky butterfly people in the grass under the tree. The butterfly people were working together to cast a secret technique, injecting wisps of colorful poisonous fog into the tree. The poisonous fog silently flowed along the tree trunk and branches into the small house. It was really impossible to guard against it. In addition, a few wasp guards in golden armor were lurking on the treetops not far away. They all held wasp sting swords and stared coldly at Ji Tianqing's small house, accumulating killing intent all over their bodies. After a short 10 breaths, the butterfly people under the tree finished casting and made a secret signal to the wasp guards on the tree. The wasp guards couldn't hold back their killing intent and flew toward the small house with their wasp sting swords. Chapter 960. The butterfly men and wasp guards thought that their actions were stealthy and that no one would notice. However, they did not know that Ji Tianqing had already seen all of this. Ji Tianqing pretended not to notice and continued to sit motionlessly on the small wooden bed. However, he had already accumulated a raging murderous intent as he thought to himself, my intuition was right. These little elves are definitely not good people. Such a secretive method of poisoning and assassination is really impossible to guard against. Oh no, Kuku and Shi Zhongjian must have also been killed. Thinking of this, he became even more furious and anxious. The next moment, the 6 wasp guards opened the door and windows and rushed into the room as fast as the wind. They thought that Ji Tianqing had been knocked out by the lethal poison and rushed toward the wooden bed with murderous intent. 2 of them even took out ropes made of poisonous spider silk and wanted to tie Ji Tianqing up. However, just as they rushed to the side of the bed, Ji Tianqing opened his eyes with a swoosh, and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. You're courting death. He shouted coldly and suddenly raised his palms, releasing the majestic true essence that he had been accumulating for a long time. Swish swish swish. 6 dark golden sword auras exploded with fierce and domineering sword intent and instantly blasted the wasp guards. The strength of the 6 wasp guards had all reached the primal core realm and were the best among the palace guards. However, they were not prepared at all. Ji Tianqing was not knocked out by the lethal poison and was still so powerful. When they realized that something was wrong, it was already too late. It was too late to hide. Bang! 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 Muffled sounds rang out, and the 6 of them were sent flying backwards, crashing heavily into the wall. The incomparably violent sword auras not only pierced through their chests and killed them on the spot, but they also blasted the entire small house into smithereens. The exquisite mushroom house was blasted into smithereens on the spot and turned into sawdust that flew in all directions. The towering tree swayed incessantly and scattered countless leaves. The dazzling golden light illuminated everything within a 100-meter radius. The corpses of the 6 wasp guards fell from the sky and landed in the bushes below the tree. The few butterfliers under the tree looked up at the treetops expectantly, waiting for the wasp guards to capture Ji Tianqing. They never thought that the result would be like this. When the corpses of the 6 wasp guards fell into the grass, they were so frightened that their faces turned pale. They screamed and fled in all directions in panic. Although they were proficient in all kinds of poison-casting techniques and could release thousands of different kinds of poisons, they were still very weak. However, their strength was only at the 2nd or 3rd level of the origin core stage, and their combat strength was even weaker than the wasp guards. Shwa! Ji Tianqing's figure flashed. He descended from the treetop and landed in the grass. He glanced coldly at the butterfly men and waved his hand, shooting out 5 golden sword lights that were more than 10 feet long. Swish! Swish! The sword lights tore through the night sky and caught up to the 5 butterfly men that were fleeing in different directions, blasting them into pieces on the spot. The remaining force of the golden sword lights hadn't dissipated and fiercely blasted into the grass, blasting out a few large holes in the grass and causing dirt to fly up into the sky. The oppressive sound and dazzling golden light immediately alarmed the surrounding fairies. The small houses on the countless large trees all lit up, and the shouts and screams of the fairies sounded out. Ji Tianqing didn't care about this. His figure transformed into a golden flowing light and flew towards the laurel tree at the south of the palace. I hope they haven't succeeded and that Ku is safe. He was filled with worry and silently prayed. He only used 2 breaths of time to cover a distance of over 1,000 meters. When he flew near the laurel tree, he saw that it was dark and quiet between the treetops. There were no traces of fighting in the surroundings, as if nothing had happened. He slightly heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly flew to the treetops and entered the small house that Ji Ku lived in. However, the room was empty. There was no one in it. Ji Ku had long disappeared, but there was still a large amount of 5-colored poisonous fog left in the room. Ku! Where are you? Ji Tianqing's heart suddenly hung in the air. He shouted anxiously and released his spiritual senses to explore a radius of 1,000 meters. However, he didn't find any clues even after searching the area within 1,000 meters of the laurel tree. Damn it! Where did those bastards take Ku? He was filled with anger and anxiety. He hurriedly flew out of the small house and into the air above the laurel tree to search around. At this moment, he saw a dazzling golden light of true essence in the night sky to the west of the palace. There were also rumbling sounds of fighting. Looking at the location of the fight, it should be Shi Zhongjian's residence. Something must have happened to him. Ji Tianqing muttered softly and hurriedly flew towards Shi Zhongjian's residence. After 2 breaths, when he arrived at the west side of the palace, he saw dozens of wasp guards besieging Shi Zhongjian. The big tree that Shi Zhongjian lived in had long been destroyed in the battle and turned into a pile of rubble. Even the few big trees within a radius of a few hundred meters were blasted into pieces by the aftermath of the battle. Shi Zhongjian's body was covered in a layer of golden light shield. He flapped his golden wings and held a golden battle sword with both hands as he defended against the Wasp Guard's attacks. There were more than 30 Wasp Guards who were at the 6th or 7th level Origin Core stage. Among them, there were 4 leaders who were at the 3rd level of Heavenly Origin stage. They were obviously the leaders of the Palace Guards. Although they were small in size, they had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. They even knew how to use formations to attack together. Although Shi Zhongjian was at the 4th level of Heavenly Origin stage, he was injured and only had 50% of his combat strength left. He was surrounded by many Wasp Guards and was constantly being beaten back. He could only defend himself tirelessly and had no strength to fight back. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing did not hesitate to help and rushed into the battlefield with a murderous aura. Shatter the mountains and rivers. He let out a roar that sounded like a dragon's roar. His figure flickered in the night sky, leaving behind hundreds of afterimages. Thousands of golden sword rays appeared and spread out within a radius of 1,000 meters, illuminating the night sky with golden light. The Wasp Guards were enveloped by the countless sword rays before they could react. Explode! Following Ji Tianqing's roar, thousands of golden sword rays exploded at the same time, creating an earth-shattering explosion. Boom! At that moment, the area within a radius of 1,000 meters was filled with golden light. It was so dazzling that people could not open their eyes and see anything clearly. The destructive force instantly destroyed the area within a radius of 1,000 meters. The towering trees and houses in the area were all blasted into dust. Even the grassland was turned into ruins and turned into a huge crater. More than 30 Wasp Guards at the Origin Core stage were blasted into dust and scattered in the crater. Only the 4 Heavenly Origin stage Guard leaders were lucky enough to survive. However, they were also lying on the ground with blood all over their bodies. Their bodies twitched and trembled as they wailed in pain. They could no longer move. Shi Zhongjian stared at Ji Tianqing with his mouth agape. He was stunned for a moment before he regained his senses and exclaimed. Chapter 961. If Ji Tianqing had not made a move, Shi Zhongjian would have been defeated without a doubt. He would have been caught or killed soon. Ji Tianqing had killed more than 30 Wasp Guards in one move and seriously injured 4 of the Guard commanders, helping him out of the predicament. He was ecstatic. However, Ji Tianqing was not relaxed at all. His expression was still solemn. He looked at Shi Zhongjian with a gloomy gaze and asked, "Lion, have you seen Ku?" Shi Zhongjian was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He quickly shook his head and asked in a worried tone, "What's wrong? Did something happen to Ji Ku's sister? These damned bastards, I thought they were warm and kind. I didn't expect them to be so despicable. They actually poisoned me while I was cultivating. Fortunately, I'm immune to all poisons and noticed something was wrong." He was full of anger and was about to explain to Ji Tianqing what had happened. At this moment, the palace not far away lit up with lights and a large number of Wasp Guards rushed out. "Kill them! Catch them!" Hundreds of golden-armored Wasp Guards and dozens of colorful butterflies rushed over with murderous intent. Not only that, the sound of the battle had awakened the forest within a 10-mile radius. The treetops in all directions lit up with starry lights, and countless little elves were galloping over. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing no longer hesitated. He waved his hand and shot out 4 sword beams, killing the 4 Guard commanders who were seriously injured and lying on the ground. Then, he wanted to escape from this place with Shi Zhongjian. "Let's leave here first and find Ku." Shi Zhongjian nodded and quickly followed him to the palace. After a few breaths, the two of them encountered nearly 100 Wasp Guards and dozens of butterfly people. The Wasp Guards immediately spread out and surrounded the two of them. They waved their wasp stinger swords and besieged the two of them. The dozens of butterfly people also joined forces to cast spells, releasing an overwhelming five-colored poisonous fog that swept toward the two of them. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing no longer held back and used his ultimate move with all his strength. Let's end this quickly. We can't stay here for long. Burning Sky Palm. He slowly raised his left palm, urging the violent scarlet flame true fire to condense in the center of his palm. His entire left arm turned as red as lava, and endless crimson flames gushed out of his palm, forming a giant flaming palm with a radius of 1,000 meters that slammed down on the wasp guards. Boom! Amidst a deafening explosion, dozens of wasp guards were turned to dust by the giant flaming palm. Even the Sky Origin stage guard leader couldn't withstand the power of the giant fiery palm. He was smashed into pieces. The red flame true fire that blotted out the sky and covered the earth burned everything within a radius of 1,000 meters into scorched earth, and the trees turned into ashes. The remaining power of the burning sky palm had yet to dissipate, and it ruthlessly struck a few large trees around the palace. Boom! With a loud bang, the 3 trees were blasted into black ash on the spot, and a huge crater was blasted into the ground. The imperial palace also suffered a calamity. Half of it was destroyed by the burning sky palm, splashing out fragments that filled the sky. The crimson fire that blotted out the sky dyed the area within a radius of 5 kilometers of fiery red. Its momentum was astonishing. Such a spectacular scene left Shi Zhongjian dumbfounded. The butterfly people and wasp guards that had surrounded the two of them were scared out of their wits. They all screamed and fled in all directions. Ji Tianqing's sharp gaze swept across the entire area, and he immediately fixed his gaze on a Sky Origin stage guard leader. Whoosh! He waved his hand, and a giant golden palm shot out, capturing the guard leader and bringing him back in front of him. The guard leader, who was clad in golden armor, was captured by the giant golden palm. He couldn't break free no matter how hard he struggled. Ji Tianqing exerted a little force, and the guard leader's entire body made cracking noises. He was almost squashed flat. Speak, where is Ji Ku? Ji Tianqing glared at him with murderous intent, and shouted in a cold tone, if there's even half a lie in your words, I'll turn you into ashes. The guard leader was scared out of his wits, but he still rolled his eyes, thinking about how to lie. Ji Tianqing was both angry and anxious. He didn't waste any time with him, and with a tug of his hand, he tore off the guard leader's wings and arms. The heart-wrenching pain caused the guard leader to cry out in pain. He didn't dare to play any tricks anymore, and he hurriedly shouted, "Spare me. I'll speak. That girl has been captured and brought to the palace." A cold light flashed in Ji Tianqing's eyes, and his entire body surged with murderous intent. He clenched his hand, and the guard leader was crushed into pieces. He casually threw the corpse on the ground, and flew towards the ruined palace. Shi Zhongjian's scalp went numb as he watched. He muttered with a strange expression, "Young Master Ji usually looks gentle and refined, like an elegant young master. I didn't expect him to be so crazy when it concerns little sister Ji Ku's life. It seems like little sister Ji Ku is very important to him." After understanding this, he didn't hesitate any longer. He followed closely behind Ji Tianqing, and rushed towards the palace with murderous intent. However, just as the two of them reached the vicinity of the ruined palace, they were surrounded by little fairies who rushed over from all directions. Hundreds of bee-men and over 200 butterfly people surrounded the two of them, roaring and roaring with murderous intent. At this moment, the bee-men and butterfly people weren't as friendly and enthusiastic as before, and they didn't look innocent or cute at all. Their expressions were ferocious, and their eyes were filled with anger and cold light. Their bodies were exuding a cold murderous aura. In the blink of an eye, the 5-colored poison mist covered an area of 1,000 meters. Hundreds of bee-men waved their swords, and sword lights covered the sky as they attacked Ji Tianqing and Shi Zhongjian. Although the two of them were quite powerful, they didn't dare to underestimate their opponents, and they didn't dare to touch the 5-colored poison mist. Damn it! Looks like I'll have to use the mulberry god robe that master gave me. Shi Zhongjian muttered with a grave expression. He quickly took out a tattered gray sackcloth cloak from his space ring. This sackcloth cloak that looked ancient and tattered, at least hundreds of years old, was a soul-level magic treasure. The cloak lit up with a layer of hazy white light that wrapped around his body, and it could actually block the corrosion of the five-colored poison mist. Ji Tianqing knew at a glance that the gray sackcloth cloak was a soul-level high-grade magic treasure, just like his green light treasure tree. This kid really has an extraordinary background. He actually has such a rare magic treasure. This thought flashed through Ji Tianqing's mind. He quickly activated the power of the Kenshin battle robe, and condensed a golden light shield to protect himself. At the same time, he waved his palms and used all his strength to unleash a secret technique to kill the little fairies around him. Scorching Sun Fire. He formed a mysterious seal with both hands, and activated the power of fire between heaven and earth. He condensed 9 huge fireballs that were as large as palaces, and they fell from the sky. The 9 scarlet fireballs were like 9 suns, and they lit up the night sky within a radius of dozens of miles. Under the monstrous flames, countless bee-men and butterfly people revealed horrified expressions as they fled in panic. Boom boom boom. In the next moment, the 9 huge fireballs came crashing down, and completely drowned the area within a radius of 1,000 meters, turning it into a boundless sea of fire. Chapter 962. The area within a radius of 1,000 meters turned into a sea of fire. Countless little elves were killed on the spot and turned into ashes. After the fire dissipated, there was no greenery in the place, only dark scorched earth and deep pits. However, the broken tribal palace still existed and was not destroyed by the sun-like fireball. A dark golden light shrouded the entire palace, blocking the power of the monstrous fire. Ji Tianqing and Shi Zhongjian stood above the ruins, ignoring the surviving elves around them and looking at the broken palace with solemn expressions. That dark golden light shroud could withstand the attack of the sun-like fireball, so it must have been made by a soul refinement powerhouse. And the only soul refinement powerhouse in the Rainbow Forest was the tribal chief. Sure enough, a dazzling golden light lit up inside the broken palace. A group of beeman guards in golden armor surrounded a colorful butterfly person and flew out of the palace. Ji Tianqing took a closer look and saw clearly that the butterfly person in the lead was Princess Nia. Behind her, more than 20 elite guards were using spider silk to tie up a young girl in a fiery red dress. That young girl was Ji Ku. Her skin was dark green and faintly emitted poisonous gas. She was obviously deeply poisoned. She was unconscious, her limbs bound by more than a dozen spider silk ropes as thick as a thumb and suspended in the air. Nia walked at the front, looking at Ji Tianqing and Shi Zhongjian with a cold smile, her eyes revealing a cunning and cruel cold light. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing was immediately filled with anger and rushed toward Nia with murderous intent. Bastard! Let go of Ku. He subconsciously channeled his energy to release a giant golden sword and blasted it toward Nia. However, Nia and the dozen beeman guards were indifferent. They looked at him with a cold smile, their eyes full of ridicule and contempt. At the same time, a 1-meter-tall figure appeared out of thin air on the roof of the palace. This person was wearing a golden robe and a jeweled crown, holding a dark golden scepter in his hand. There was no doubt that this beeman was the tribal chief. Arrogant human, you still dare to be arrogant when you are about to die. The chieftain growled in a dignified tone. He held the dark gold staff in his right hand and pointed it at Ji Tianqing. Shwa! A dazzling golden light shot out and collided head-on with the giant golden sword, shattering it into pieces. Ji Tianqing's attack was neutralized. He subconsciously looked up at the roof of the palace and glared at the chieftain with a gloomy gaze. The chief stood on the roof and looked down at him. His eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. At this moment, Nia flew to Ji Ku's side. She stretched out her colorful right hand and gently stroked Ji Ke's forehead. She looked at Ji Tianxing, sneered and said with a mocking tone, "Stupid human worm. Your companion is in my hands. If you don't want her to die in front of you, you'd better stop." Ji Tianxing and Shi Zhongjian could only stay where they were, not daring to attack again. Countless bee-men and butterfly people came from all directions, surrounding the palace so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Many elves were filled with righteous indignation. They cursed with ferocious faces and shouted with resentment in their eyes, demanding that the chieftain kill Ji Tianxing and Shi Zhongjian immediately. Ji Tianxing glared at Nia and shouted angrily in a deep voice, "If you dare to hurt Ji Ke, I will definitely turn your rainbow forest into ashes." Nia sneered with contempt. "Hee, you idiot, it seems that you still haven't figured out your situation. If you don't want to kill your companion, kneel down and beg for mercy." At this moment, her expression was ferocious and cruel. She was not as innocent and cute as before. Tonight's events also made Ji Tianxing and Shi Zhongjian understand that these elves were definitely not good people. Cunning, cruel, good at disguising and deceiving, this was their true colors. Ji Tianxing's face was cold, and his chest was filled with murderous intent. Shi Zhongjian was also full of anger. He pointed at Nia and cursed, "You despicable and shameless bastard. We thought you were friendly and warm, but we didn't expect you to be so insidious and vicious." "Ha ha ha." Nia suddenly raised her head and laughed. She said in a contemptuous tone, "Insidious and vicious? I'll take that as a compliment. You can only blame yourselves for being too stupid. How dare you barge into our rainbow forest tribe? You're courting death and becoming materials for our poison. For thousands of years, countless people have barged into our rainbow forest, but how many of them have made it out alive in the end? Almost all of them had their belongings and treasures plundered by us, and then we cut them into pieces, ground them into powder, and made them into various poisons. If we didn't kill you foreign races, how could we keep the secret of the rainbow forest and live peacefully until now? You." Shi Zhongjian was suddenly at a loss for words. He looked vexed and regretful. Ji Tianxing, on the other hand, kept silent with a gloomy face. No one knew that he was secretly devising a plan to save Ji Ke. At this time, a dagger appeared in Nia's palm. It was shining with a cold light and glowing with a blue light. It was obviously dipped in poison. She played with the dagger in her right hand and pointed it at Ji Ke's forehead. She sneered and said in a cold voice, "Idiots, now it's time for you to make a choice. Destroy your own cultivation, kneel down and surrender, or watch as your companion's head is cut open by my poisonous dagger." As soon as she said that, Ji Tianxing and Shi Zhongjian were instantly enraged. They wanted nothing more than to tear Nia into pieces. The tribal chief on the roof also pointed at them with his scepter. He sneered and said, "Idiots, don't think of playing any tricks. If you dare to act rashly, I promise I'll kill her before you can save that girl." Ji Tianxing did have this idea. He wanted to take the risk and suddenly attack Nia to save Ji Ke. However, the tribal chief had the strength of a spirit-refining realm cultivator and was glaring at him, so he had to give up on this idea. Seeing that they were indifferent, Nia frowned and shouted angrily, "What are you waiting for? Do you want this girl to die? You don't want to destroy your own cultivation? Fine. Blonde boy, cut off his right arm with your sword." She pointed at Ji Tianxing and roared at Shi Zhongjian. Shi Zhongjian's eyes widened and he shouted angrily, "You vicious bastard! Young Master Ji is my companion. I will never hurt him. You don't want to. Hee." Nia sneered. With a wave of the dagger in her hand, she drew a line of blood on Ji Ke's forehead. A cold light flashed and blood splattered. On Ji Ke's forehead, there was a bloody mark so deep that the bone could be seen. Ji Tianxing and Shi Zhongjian were so angry that they almost went berserk. They gnashed their teeth in hatred, but there was nothing they could do. Nia played with the bloody dagger and stared coldly at Shi Zhongjian. She sneered and said, "If you waste any more time, I'll cut off her neck." Shi Zhongjian's body stiffened and his expression was extremely complicated. He was suffering great torment and torture in his heart. He could either cut off Ji Tianqing's right arm or watch Ji Ku be killed by Nia. He had no other choice. But no matter what the result was, it was not what he wanted to see. When Nia waved the dagger again and slashed at Ji Ku's throat, he finally made a decision. "Stop it!" he roared, on the verge of breaking down. He held the golden sword in his right hand and slashed at his left arm. Swoosh! A golden light flashed and blood splattered. The incomparably sharp golden sword cut off his left arm on the spot, causing a rain of blood to spurt out. The severed arm fell from the sky and landed on the grass below. Ah! The heart-wrenching pain made Shi Zhongjian's face turn pale and he let out a shrill scream. Chapter 963. No one would have thought that Shi Zhongjian would make such a decision in such a desperate situation. He didn't want to hurt Ji Tianqing, nor did he want Ji Ku to be hurt. He actually swung his sword and cut off his left arm. Not only was Ji Tianqing shocked, but even Nia, the tribal chief, and the Beeman guards were all stunned. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at Shi Zhongjian in disbelief. They were stunned for a long time. No one could understand that this honest and pure prince of the Golden Lion tribe would be so stupid. At this moment, Ji Tianqing, who had been suppressing his anger and killing intent, finally seized the opportunity. He used his spiritual sense to shout at the little black dragon, "Little black dragon. Now!" At the same time, a large hole suddenly appeared in the grass under Nia and the Beeman guard's feet. Mud and dirt splattered everywhere. A 10-meter-long, pitch-black, ice-cold dragon rushed out of the ground at lightning speed and pounced at the unconscious Ji Ku. Before Nia and the Beeman guards could react, they were sent flying and scattered in all directions. The little black dragon released a cold light that enveloped the unconscious Ji Ku, instantly rescuing her and flying into the night sky. This sudden turn of events caused the elves to be at a loss as to what to do. They actually forgot to stop the little black dragon. Only the tribal chief on the roof of the palace was the first to react. He let out an angry roar and waved his scepter to release several rays of golden light that blasted toward the little black dragon. "Bastard! You're courting death." Those several rays of dazzling golden light condensed into 10-meter-long spear shadows that burst forth with destructive power. The little black dragon didn't have time to dodge and was about to be hit by the 4 spear shadows and killed on the spot. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing, who had been waiting for a long time, rushed over in a flash. Whoosh! He appeared beside the little black dragon out of thin air and took out his magic treasure, the Seal of Mountains and Rivers. He unleashed all his power and activated the Seal of Mountains and Rivers to the size of a house. The Seal of Mountains and Rivers covered the little black dragon's body and put Ji Ku into the magic treasure space. In the next moment, 4 golden spear shadows bombarded the Seal of Mountains and Rivers with peng 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 peng, causing an earth-shattering explosion. The golden spear shadows all exploded, turning into golden fragments that filled the sky. They mixed with the violent shockwaves and spread in all directions. Hundreds of elves were sent flying by the shockwaves within a 1,000-meter radius, suffering heavy casualties. Ji Tianqing was unharmed. He immediately put away the Seal of Mountains and Rivers and flew back to Shi Zhongjian's side. "Lion, let's go." He supported Shi Zhongjian with his right hand and grabbed the ground with his left hand, picking up Shi Zhongjian's severed arm. Then, he jumped onto the little black dragon's back and fled into the distance. The little black dragon exploded with all its strength, transforming into a black bolt of lightning that shot into the sky, fleeing as fast as it could. It was only at this moment that the chieftain and the many Beeman guards came to their senses. They all let out furious roars and began their pursuit. "Don't let them escape. Quick! Catch them! Kill them! They killed so many of our people. We must make them pay with their blood. The tribal chief took the lead and flew across the sky, holding the dark gold staff in his hand as he chased after the little black dragon. Following closely behind him were a dozen or so divine origin realm experts. These were the elders of the Rainbow Forest tribe. Behind the elders were hundreds of thousands of demon guards and butterfly people. Everyone gave chase in a grandiose manner, looking as if they would not stop until they killed Ji Tianqing. However, the little black dragon quickly shook off the ordinary demon guards and butterfly people. Only the tribal chief and 10 odd elders followed closely behind the little black dragon. Even if the little black dragon used all his strength to escape, he could not shake off the dozen or so experts. The distance between the two sides was constantly closing. Ji Tianqing held Shi Zhongjian's severed arm in his left hand and helped him reattach it to the wound on his shoulder. His right hand released vigorous greenwood true essence to help heal the wound. Lion, why were you so foolish? Ji Tianqing was both angry and anxious, but he was also somewhat touched. Shi Zhongjian endured the heart-wrenching pain as his entire body trembled. His forehead was covered in cold sweat as he raised his head and squeezed out a pale smile. Young Master Ji, you and little sister Ji Ku are my best friends. You saved my life and treated me so well. How could I hurt you? The situation was critical, and I could only do this in order to save little sister Ji Ku's life. Ji Tianqing was filled with emotions as he sighed in his heart. Sigh, you rascal. Forget it, quickly reattach your severed arm. You'll recover in half a year. Shi Zhongjian nodded and silently condensed a golden shield to wrap around the wound of the broken arm. Ji Tianqing turned his head and saw that the tribal chief and the elders had caught up and were ready to attack at any time. He frowned and said with a grave expression, "Little black dragon, you take the lion and leave first. I'll bring up the rear." With that, he flew into the night sky without hesitation. He spread his golden wings and flew towards the tribal chief and the elders. No. We'll leave together. Shi Zhongjian was shocked. He turned his head to look at the night sky, but he could only see Ji Tianqing's back. In that instant, Ji Tianqing's body was wrapped in golden light, dazzling in the pitch-black night sky. His back was not very broad, but it revealed an indomitable and domineering aura. He seemed to be incomparably tall and majestic. Shi Zhongjian's heart was filled with emotions as he shouted in a hoarse voice, "Young Master Ji, you have to be careful. We'll wait for you at the edge of the Rainbow Forest." Ji Tianqing had already rushed into the crowd and was fighting with the tribal chief and the elders. He naturally had no time to answer him. After a few breaths, the little black dragon carried Shi Zhongjian away and disappeared into the forest. Bang! Ji Tianqing used the metal imperial slash and clashed with the tribal chief. There was a massive explosion. The two massive sword beams collapsed at the same time, turning into golden fragments that scattered across the night sky. Ji Tianqing was forced back 1,000 meters. His face was pale and blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. But the tribal chief stood motionless in the night sky. He once again waved his dark gold staff and took advantage of the situation to pursue. 10,000 wasps heaven beckoning, golden sword god slaying. The tribal chief gripped the dark gold staff with both hands and roared with a solemn expression. He used all his strength and used the secret technique of the demon race. Instantly, the dark gold staff pierced through the night sky and released 10,000 golden stingers. Each golden stinger was over 100 meters long and was like a sharp and domineering golden sword. The 10,000 golden stingers gathered the power of the world and sealed off an area of 10 kilometers. They rained down on Ji Tianqing like a torrential downpour. Swish swish swish. The night sky was instantly illuminated. The golden light was so dazzling that it was difficult to open one's eyes. Chapter 964. Bam! 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 Tens of thousands of giant golden swords exploded with unstoppable power and hit Ji Tianqing hard. The deafening sound reverberated in the night sky and spread for hundreds of miles. The golden light fragments and the shockwave exploded and swept in all directions. Instantly, the countless towering trees in the forest within dozens of miles were smashed into pieces by the golden light shockwave. Even the dozen or so elf elders were pushed back 1,000 meters, their faces full of shock. After a long time, the violent shockwave dissipated, and the golden light in the sky gradually extinguished. The night sky returned to darkness, but Ji Tianqing was nowhere to be seen. The chief held the dark gold scepter tightly and stared at the night sky with sharp eyes. He released his spiritual consciousness to search for Ji Tianqing. The dozen or so elf elders also opened their eyes wide and searched for Ji Tianqing. Where is that human reptile? Why is he missing? Was he killed by the chief's secret technique? The chief's secret technique is destructive. That guy is only at the heaven's origin realm. He must have been blown into pieces. That can't be. Even if that guy was killed by the chief, there should be some traces left behind. Just as the crowd was full of doubts and whispering to each other, a dazzling golden light appeared behind the elders out of thin air. It was a giant golden sword that was hundreds of meters long. It exuded a destructive and earth-shattering murderous aura. The giant sword was surrounded by golden flames and condensed into the shadow of a huge white tiger. This was Ji Tianqing's secret technique, the white tiger sacred sword. He transformed his body into a giant sword and unleashed an all-destroying power as he viciously slashed toward the elven elders. The elf elders sensed that something was wrong. Their faces changed dramatically, and they were full of shock. They instinctively dodged, but it was too late. Bam! 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 The white tiger sacred sword slashed the 5 elf elders on the spot, smashing them into pieces and turning their bodies into dregs. The golden light faded, and the huge sword disappeared. Ji Tianqing's figure appeared with a swoosh. He stood unscathed in the night sky, surrounded by a murderous aura. The other 12 elven elders and chiefs were all stunned. They looked at him in disbelief, unable to believe their eyes. You were hit by my ultimate killer move, but you're actually unharmed. How is this possible? The chieftain stared at Ji Tianqing in shock and couldn't help but let out a roar. He was at the second level of the soul-tempering stage and thought that he could easily kill Ji Tianqing, a heaven origin stage cultivator. But he didn't expect that not only was Ji Tianqing not dead, but he also didn't have any injuries on his body. This was simply seeing a ghost. Only Ji Tianqing knew that he had used his Kenshin battle robe to protect himself when the golden swords came crashing down on him. While heaven and earth were in chaos, he sneaked behind the elven elders and launched a sneak attack. Back then, he was only at the 7th level of the heaven origin stage, but he wasn't even defeated by the 3rd prince, who was at the 1st level of the soul tempering stage. Now that he was at the 9th level of the heaven origin stage, his sword heart had reached perfection. The chieftain was only at the 2nd level of the soul tempering stage, so how could he kill him? However, he couldn't be bothered to waste his breath on the chieftain. While the chieftain was still in a daze, he used his ultimate killer move again and attacked the other elven elders. Vermilion Bird Sacred Sword. Flames burst out from his body and merged with the flames to form a huge sword that was over 100 meters long. The flames around the huge sword formed the shadow of a vermilion bird as large as a mountain. The divine vermilion bird was incomparably majestic. It extended a pair of sharp claws and unleashed a destructive might toward the elven elders. When the elven elders came back to their senses, they were so scared that they immediately fled in panic, letting out terrified screams. However, there were still 4 unlucky elven elders who didn't have time to escape and were struck by the vermilion bird sacred sword. Bam bam bam. The 4 elders were killed by the vermilion bird sacred sword on the spot, and the pieces of their corpses were burned to ashes. 9 of the dozen or so elven elders had been killed, reducing the number of elven elders by half. The remaining 8 elven elders were all scared out of their wits and ran as far away as they could. The chieftain was enraged to see this and he let loose an earth-shattering roar. "Bastard! You damned human bastard, I'm going to tear you to shreds." The chieftain waved his dark golden staff in a frenzy and gathered the power of heaven and earth to form a domain. He was going to use his domain to suppress Ji Tianqing and battle Ji Tianqing until Ji Tianqing was killed. Suddenly, the wind and clouds began to surge. The rainbow poisonous clouds in the sky tumbled and poured down like a torrential flood, enveloping an area of 50 kilometers in radius. Violent gales swept through the air, blowing sand and pebbles into the forest within a few dozen kilometers. Towering trees were snapped and branches and leaves danced in the air. Within a radius of 50 kilometers, all the plants, trees, soil, and even the poisonous clouds in the sky were under the chieftain's control. The power of heaven and earth quickly converged to form a huge rainbow barrier of light that enveloped the entire area. Ji Tianqing hesitated for a moment upon seeing this. "The chieftain has already gone mad and wants to fight me to the death. I can't afford to be entangled with him any longer. After all, he's a powerful soul refinement cultivator with powerful secret treasures and secret techniques. It'll be very difficult for me to kill him. Shi Zhongjian is severely injured and Ku is still unconscious from the poison. I have to leave this place as soon as possible to treat their injuries." In his opinion, fighting the chieftain to the death was meaningless and a waste of time. It was definitely not as important as treating Ji Ku. In any case, he had already killed so many elves and 9 elven elders, causing the Rainbow Forest tribe to suffer heavy losses. It could be said that he had vented some of his resentment. Thinking of this, he turned around and fled without hesitation, flying towards the edge of the Rainbow Forest. The night sky in front of him was sealed off by a wall of light formed from poisonous clouds. That was the barrier of the Divine Spirit domain. Ji Tianqing's path was blocked, but he didn't slow down. He suddenly opened the third eye on his forehead. Thunderbolt. Following his low roar, endless thunderbolts were released from his azure blue eye. They formed a huge thunderbolt light pillar that blasted towards the rainbow light wall. Kaboom! There was a deafening explosion, and a huge hole was blasted in the rainbow light wall. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing's figure flashed and passed through the huge hole, escaping the chieftain's divine spirit domain. The chieftain was instantly enraged. He stopped waving his scepter and stopped forming his divine spirit domain. "Bastard! Don't even think about escaping from the Rainbow Forest." He roared furiously and chased after Ji Tianqing with all his might. In order to shake him off, Ji Tianqing had no choice but to take out his sword embryo and fly towards the edge of the Rainbow Forest. Swish! Chapter 965. When Ji Tianqing arrived at the edge of the Rainbow Forest on his golden sword, he saw the little black dragon and Shi Zhongjian waiting for him in the sky. The little black dragon floated in the night sky with Shi Zhongjian standing on its back, gazing worriedly in the direction of the Rainbow Forest. When he saw Ji Tianqing dashing over, the worry in his heart instantly dissipated, and it transformed into dense pleasant surprise. He actually forgot about the injury on his left arm and raised his hands to wave at Ji Tianqing. He shouted, "Young Master Ji, you've finally come out. Wonderful, quickly come over." After waving his arm a few times, the injury on his left arm was aggravated, causing him to grimace in pain. Only then did he hurriedly lower his left arm. Whoosh! Ji Tianqing flew over like a bolt of lightning and landed on the little black dragon's back. The little black dragon did not hesitate and immediately sped off into the distance. Only when it was 30 li away from the Rainbow Forest did the tribal chief charge out of the forest and give chase, seething with killing intent. "Bastard! I'll kill you!" The tribal chief furiously roared, madly brandishing his scepter as he continued to chase after the little black dragon. However, he could not close the distance between him and the little black dragon. Even if he continued chasing, he could not catch up. 15 minutes later, the tribal chief had chased for 200 li, but he still could not catch up to the little black dragon. He could only helplessly give up. He stood in the sky and gazed at the little black dragon's departing figure. He angrily cursed a few times before returning to the rainbow forest. Ji Tianqing and Shi Zhongjian were finally out of danger and could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Only now did Ji Tianqing notice that not far behind Shi Zhongjian, there was a stone block half the height of a person. It was a grayish-brown dwarf with short limbs and a muscular body. His body was covered in wounds and he was currently curled up, silently sitting on the little black dragon's back without saying a word. Ji Tianqing examined him and recognized him. He was the dwarf that had been escorted into the palace by the Beeman guards that night. He seemed to be an earth spirit. "Lion, what's going on here? Why is he here?" Ji Tianqing pointed to the dwarf and asked Shi Zhongjian. Shi Zhongjian turned to look at the dwarf and hurriedly explained, "Young Master Ji, it's like this. When we were escaping from the rainbow forest, we happened to meet this little fellow. At that time, he was being pursued by a group of Beeman guards. He was riddled with wounds and could lose his life at any moment. I feel that the elves of the rainbow forest are all despicable and vicious bastards. This little guy is very pitiful, just like us, so I." Ji Tianqing immediately understood. He nodded and said, "You saw that he was pitiful, so you saved him." Shi Zhongjian looked at him carefully, observing his reaction. He seemed to be afraid that he would get angry, so he explained, "Young Master Ji, there's an ancient saying that saving a life is better than building a 7-storied pagoda. At that time, I was only doing it in passing and treated it as doing a good deed. If you feel that it's inconvenient to bring him along, I'll let him leave once we reach a safe place." Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "Look after him first. Help him treat his wounds and communicate with him. I have to save Ku first." After saying that, he took out the seal of mountains and rivers and placed the golden seal on the little black dragon's back. With a whoosh, it entered the artifact space. In the pitch-black artifact space, Ji Ku was wrapped in a layer of ice and was lying quietly on the ground. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and dispersed the ice. He hurriedly checked on Ji Ku's injuries. Ji Ku's hands and feet were bound by spider silk ropes. She couldn't move, and her skin was dark green. The wound on her forehead had already turned black, and black poisonous blood kept flowing out. It was obvious that she had been deeply poisoned. Her breathing was very weak, and her life aura was also very weak. She was like a candle in the wind that could be extinguished at any time. Seeing that her situation was so critical, Ji Tianqing was filled with worry. His expression was solemn. Ku's current condition is too deeply poisoned. Her life is hanging by a thread. If I use normal methods to treat her wounds and remove the poison, it will take me at least a day to completely remove the poison. She will also need to recuperate for half a month before she can slowly recover her vitality. This thought flashed through his mind. After thinking for a while, he decided to try another treatment method. He untied the spider silk ropes that bound Ji Ku's hands and feet. He stretched out his right hand and pressed it on Ji Ku's forehead. "Heaven-mending pearl, I hope you won't disappoint me," he muttered silently in his heart. He activated the power of the heaven-mending pearl, and a dense sacred white light surged out of his palm. It covered Ji Ku's forehead. The sacred white light wrapped around the wound on Ji Ku's forehead and quickly removed the dirty blood and poison. Immediately after, the sacred white light surged into her body through the wound and spread throughout her body. The moment the poison in her body came into contact with the sacred white light, it was quickly dispelled and purified. The color of Ji Ku's skin quickly lightened. The dark green poison quickly dissipated, and her skin returned to its white and sparkling appearance. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing's spirit was shaken. He said with joy, "That's great. The heaven-mending pearl really didn't disappoint me. It really can remove the poison. No wonder I was not poisoned in the rainbow forest even though I was constantly corroded by the rainbow poison fog. With the heaven-mending pearl, I have a physique that is immune to all poisons. Next, he activated his power for 100 breaths of time. With the help of the heaven-mending pearl, he completely removed the poison in Ji Ku's body. After removing the poison, he slowly withdrew his right palm and activated the majestic green wood true essence. He released a dark green life force and poured it into Ji Ku's body. He had the green wood spirit body and controlled the powerful green wood power. He could treat and heal people. The rich green wood true essence enveloped Ji Ku's body, causing the wound on her forehead to quickly heal. Only a light pink scar was left. Her internal organs and meridians had also been corroded by the poison and suffered heavy damage. Under the healing of the green wood true essence, the injuries on her internal organs and meridians were quickly healing. Her cultivation was also slowly recovering. After 15 minutes, Ji Ku's injuries stabilized. She was fine for the time being. She was sleeping peacefully, and her breathing and life aura were very stable and normal. Ji Tianqing was relieved and left the artifact space. Swoosh! He returned to the little black dragon's back and put away the seal of mountains and rivers. At this time, Shi Zhongjian was treating the dwarf's injuries and talking in a low voice. Ji Tianqing walked over and asked Shi Zhongjian, "Lion, how's the situation? Did you find out his identity and origin?" Shi Zhongjian raised his head and looked at him with excitement. His eyes were bright as he said, "Young Master Ji, our luck is really too good. Do you know who this little guy is?" "Who?" Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and was a little puzzled. Shi Zhongjian said excitedly, "His name is Ai Luo. He's the prince of the earth spirit race." "The prince of the earth spirit race?" Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with a sudden realization, "He really is the earth spirit race. No wonder those elves wanted to capture him." Shi Zhongjian added in an agitated tone, "Young Master Ji, isn't our third objective going to Carefree Mountain? The elves living on Carefree Mountain are the earth spirit race." Chapter 966. The legendary Mount Carefree appeared and disappeared from time to time. It would often move and change its position constantly. No one knew why a huge mountain would move on its own, running around like an animal. Ji Tianqing made Mount Carefree their final destination not only because it was the furthest away. There was another important reason. Mount Carefree was too mysterious and difficult to find. It would definitely take a lot of time and effort to find it. Now, the dwarf Shi Zhongjian saved turned out to be the prince of the earth spirit race, Arrow. And the elf living on Mount Carefree was actually the earth spirit race. This was definitely a pleasant surprise for Ji Tianqing. He hurriedly asked Shi Zhongjian, "Lion, did you tell Arrow about our goal?" "Of course I did." Shi Zhongjian nodded and said with a smile, "I told Ai Luo that we're looking for Carefree Mountain because we want to investigate something. We have no ill intentions and will definitely not harm the earth spirit race." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and continued asking, "What did Arrow say? Did he agree?" "Of course he agreed." Shi Zhongjian smiled. "He was very grateful for my saving his life and said that he would take us to the earth spirit race to thank us properly." Ji Tianqing also revealed a gratified smile and said, "Very good. Then you take good care of him and have him show the way to the little black dragon. We will immediately rush to Mount Carefree. Also, he trusts and is grateful to you. You should communicate with him more and ask about the grudge between the earth spirit race and the rainbow forest. Also, you can ask him about Mount Carefree." Shi Zhongjian naturally nodded in agreement and hurriedly started to communicate with Arrow. However, after exchanging a few words with Ai Luo, he looked at Ji Tianqing worriedly and asked for help, "Young Master Ji, Ai Luo is severely injured. I don't know any medical skills, so I can't save him. Moreover, he has been poisoned by the rainbow forest and is in mortal danger. Ji Tianqing nodded and walked in front of Arrow. He said sincerely, Arrow, I can help you get rid of the poison and heal your injuries, but you must trust me and cooperate. Arrow was a shy and quiet little boy. Although he could understand the human language, he rarely spoke. He stared at Ji Tianqing for a while, then nodded and said in a very small voice, Thank you. Ji Tianqing revealed a faint smile and didn't say anything else. He reached out his right hand and held onto his arm, silently urging the power of the heaven-mending orb. Instantly, a dense holy white light surged out of his palm and covered Arrow's arm. The flesh around the wound had long been corroded into a dark purple color by the strong poison, and black poisonous blood was still flowing out. Under the purification of the holy white light, the dark purple color quickly dissipated, and the poison was quickly purified. Then, the white light entered Arrow's body through the wound and flowed through his blood and meridians. As long as the poison in Ai Luo's body came into contact with the white light of the heaven-mending pearl, it was quickly purified. Taking this opportunity, Ji Tianqing used his spiritual sense to check on Ai Luo's condition. Ai Luo looked like a block of stone. He was honest and sturdy, and his skin was grayish-brown like a rock. In fact, when Ai Luo let down his guard, his body, meridians, and blood were very soft, very similar to that of a human. It was just that the structure of his meridians was rather strange and completely different from that of a human. Moreover, his flesh and bones contained powerful earth and metal elements, which gave him a violent strength and a powerful defense. When Ai Luo was nervous and on guard, or when he was fighting, the muscles and skin all over his body would become as hard as rock. The earth spirit race seems to be very close to the earth, rocks, and metal. They are good at borrowing the power of the earth. They are like the elves of the rainbow forest. They are rare elves, but they are more honest and kind. Ji Tianqing thought silently. He was filled with anticipation for the earth spirit race and Carefree Mountain. Not long after, he helped Ai Luo cleanse the poison in his body. As expected, Ai Luo felt much more relaxed, and his spirit also recovered. He then used his green with true essence and shot out a majestic dark green light into Ai Luo's body, helping him heal his injuries. 15 minutes later, Ai Luo's injuries were temporarily no longer a problem, and Ji Tianqing finished healing his injuries. Ai Luo gave him a friendly smile. He knelt on one knee, put his palms together, and saluted him. Thank you for saving me, sir. Ai Luo can't thank you enough. Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. He reached out to help Ai Luo up and started chatting with him. Ai Luo, how did you get captured by the elves of the rainbow forest? What grudge does the earth spirit race have with them? When the elves of the rainbow forest were mentioned, Ai Luo's expression became a little angry. He said in a hateful tone, they are the spirit insects race, evil bastards. The earth spirit race and the spirit insects race have been enemies since thousands of years ago. They have always wanted to destroy our home, steal our wealth, and turn us into slaves to forge armor and weapons for them. Our two races have always been at war with each other. 3 days ago, I brought my guards to get wine near the wine pond. We were brewing our favorite flower cloud wine there, but the despicable spirit insects race ambushed us. They killed my guards and captured me back to the rainbow forest. They wanted to use me as a hostage in exchange for the armor and weapons they wanted. God bless me, I was lucky to have met you. You destroyed their palace and prison, so I was able to take the opportunity to escape and was rescued by you. Ji Tianqing and Ai Luo talked for a long time and asked many questions. After an hour of conversation, he gradually learned about the grudge between the Earth Spirit race and the Rainbow Forest, as well as some information about Carefree Mountain. As it turned out, there were 3 great spirit races living in the southern wasteland marsh, the Earth Spirit race, the Spirit Insects race, and the Heaven Spirit race. The outside world called them the Elves. The Earth Spirit race lived in Carefree Mountain. They could borrow the power of the earth and metal. They were skilled at moving mountains and digging holes. They could go deep underground and explore all kinds of metal veins. They were skilled at using earth core fire and lava to forge armor and weapons. They loved to drink wine brewed from flowers and trees. They were simple, kind, and honest. They hated deceit and schemes the most. The spirit insects race lived in the rainbow forest. They were mainly bee-men and butterfliers. They were cunning and treacherous. They were skilled at borrowing the power of flowers and trees, and they were skilled at poisoning. However, it was very difficult for them to forge armor and weapons. They had to trade with the earth spirit race if they wanted to obtain weapons and equipment. The spirit insects race was sinister and despicable. They had schemed against the earth spirit race many times and finally angered the earth spirit race. The conflict between the two races became more and more intense. In the end, it became a feud. The spirit insects race's goal had always been to defeat the earth spirit race and enslave them as their slaves. As for the third heaven spirit race, it was mainly the birdman race in the sky. Chapter 967. Ji Tianqing chatted with AI Luo for an hour. He benefited a lot and obtained a lot of useful information. Apart from the three elven races, he also learned a few things about Carefree Mountain. According to Arrow, 1,000 years ago, the Earth Spirit race did not have a fixed residence. They lived in the Earth's core, living in the caves and lava. 1,000 years ago, the Earth Spirit race discovered a divine mountain that was thousands of meters tall and settled down there. The outside world viewed them as carefree little elves, so they called that divine mountain Carefree Mountain. When he heard this, Ji Tianqing asked Arrow what was so special about that divine mountain. Why was it called a divine mountain? Arrow frowned and pondered for a long time, but he could not give a clear answer. After all, this was the decision of the Earth Spirit race's ancestor, and he did not know the reason. He only knew that he had lived on the divine mountain since he was young. Whenever the Earth Spirit race was attacked by the spirit insects, or when they finished gathering all the resources in the surrounding 10,000 kilometers, the Earth Spirit race would move the divine mountain to another location. When Ji Tianqing heard this, he understood why the divine mountain would appear and disappear from time to time and why it would constantly change locations. However, Arrow did not explain how the Earth Spirit race moved the divine mountain. After all, this was a secret of the Earth Spirit race that could not be told to outsiders. Unknowingly, 10 hours passed by very quickly, and it was already afternoon. The little black dragon had already flown 10,000 kilometers away from the rainbow forest. Ji Tianqing remembered Shi Zhongjian's map. According to the map, they were still tens of thousands of kilometers away from Carefree Mountain. However, Arrow told him and Shi Zhongjian that they would arrive at the divine mountain after crossing that mountain range. This news caused Ji Tianqing and Shi Zhongjian's spirits to rise. Their eyes were filled with anticipation. Whoosh! The little black dragon flew through the sky like a bolt of lightning, crossing over an undulating mountain range and arriving in the air above the mountains. Even though they were still dozens of miles away, everyone could clearly see that there was a towering mountain that was thousands of feet tall among the mountains in front of them. That was the divine mountain of the Earth Spirit race. When Ji Tianqing saw the sacred mountain for the first time, he furrowed his brows. His eyes flashed with astonishment. For a moment, he thought he was looking at the heavenly sword steel in Kenshin's tomb. It was because the divine mountain was similar to the heaven-span sword steel. Its outer appearance was like an enormous sword that was pitch black like ink, and it emitted an icy cold and desolate aura. Although he was tens of miles away, he could still feel the majestic and ancient aura of the sacred mountain. Just as he was sizing up the divine mountain in astonishment, the voice of the burial of heaven suddenly rang out in his mind. This is the place. It's that mountain. Burial of Heaven's voice was as old and distant as ever, but it was filled with joy and excitement, to the point that his voice was trembling. All this time, burial of heaven had been as steady as a mountain and as cold as ice. It had never lost its composure. It was like a deity overlooking the world, coldly observing everything from the sidelines. However, its voice rang out in Ji Tianqing's mind. Ji Tianqing could clearly sense the emotions contained in that voice. It was like a father finally finding his long-lost child. He could also understand the complex feelings of the burial of heaven when it finally found its broken body after 1,000 years. Of course, he also understood what this meant. He became excited as he asked in pleasant surprise, "Burial of heaven, could it be that the divine sword is on that divine mountain?" Burial of heaven replied in a deep and vigorous voice, "Yes. I understand." Ji Tianqing said no more. He stared at the distant divine mountain, his eyes surging with a dense light. Very quickly, the little black dragon carried the group to the divine mountain and landed at its base. Ji Tianqing and Shi Zhongjian examined the divine mountain at close range, their eyes filled with amazement. They saw that this divine mountain, which was 10,000 feet tall, was like a giant pitch-black sword. There was a dense forest at the base of the mountain, a verdant scene of dark green. The mountain walls were straight and precipitous. There were no paths or steps, so it was impossible to walk or climb. However, there were many caves carved into the nearly vertical cliffs. Every cave was pitch black and led to the interior of the mountain, where the common people of the earth spirit race lived. Rows of caves were densely packed like honeycombs, distributed all over the divine mountain. Ji Tianqing guessed that from the outside, these caves did not seem to be connected. However, inside the mountain, the caves were definitely connected. In fact, not only were there many passages inside the caves, there were definitely even larger caves, similar to halls and plazas. Before the earth spirit race discovered the divine mountain, they lived in the depths of the mountain and underground. They were the best at digging holes and building underground cities. After they settled down in the divine mountain, they turned it into their home, like a giant castle. He hurriedly released his spiritual sense toward the divine mountain, wanting to investigate the situation inside. However, his spiritual sense was reflected the moment it came into contact with the divine mountain. An extremely powerful, boundless, and formless energy enveloped the entire divine mountain. Ji Tianqing's face instantly paled, and his consciousness became blurry and dizzy. He furrowed his brows in shock, thinking to himself, such a powerful and mysterious energy, and its aura is actually somewhat similar to the burial of heaven. Could this be the power of the broken sword? That broken sword from 1,000 years ago fell into this mountain and protected it? At this moment, Arrow waved at him and Shi Zhongjian, smiling as he said, "Esteemed guests, please follow me into the divine mountain to pay a visit to my father." After saying that, he led Ji Tianqing and Shi Zhongjian into the divine mountain. Ji Tianqing put the little black dragon back into the pouch and followed Arrow to the foot of the mountain, arriving in front of a pitch-black cave. Arrow pressed his palm against the wall of the divine mountain, silently circulating his energy. Immediately, the large formation that sealed the entrance of the cave was opened, and a dark passage appeared in the cave. Arrow stepped into the cave first, leading the two into the depths of the passage. Along the way, there were Earth Spirit race guards on both sides of the passage. These guards' figures and appearances were very similar to Arrow's. They were all sturdy dwarves, and they were as heavy as stone. They wore black metal armor and carried swords and scimitars. Some of the guards even used hammers as their weapons. They looked extremely valiant. Not long after, the three of them reached the end of the passage and entered a stone room that was 2 meters wide. The floor of the stone room was engraved with formation patterns, and the walls were also engraved with ancient patterns and symbols. There was also a palm-sized black metal button. Arrow slapped the black metal button, and the stone door of the stone room immediately closed. Then, the formation on the ground lit up, and the entire stone room was quickly lifted up by the formation's power. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.